We are live on a Monday edition of the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video streaming on the X platform, YouTube, at Mike Gill Show. What's up, everybody, from the Fanatics Sportsbook in Atlantic City? Well, on some of these days, you always wonder. You know, the Phillies got eliminated last week on a Thursday. The Eagles played on a Thursday. And you might think to yourself, what's the topical information we want to discuss to open the show today? Well, now we have a plethora of things to discuss. We got a bunch of things to discuss. One, the Phillies have made it official. Rob Thomson will be back next year as the manager of the Philadelphia Phillies. It has been confirmed. John Heyman reported it and confirmed by many that Rob Thomson will be back as the manager in 2026. And I'm sure people out there have a ton to say because this week we are going to do a week-long stay or go, and that is our Twitter poll today, at Mike Gill Show. Should Rob Thomson stay or go? Now, we put that post up in the morning. We did not know the Phillies were going to make that announcement today that Rob Thomson would be back. But the poll question was up this morning, and people have been voting throughout the day. Let's go check out the numbers and see what people thought. But, Pete, if you had a vote, Josh, if you had a vote, each day this week, we have a stay or go candidate. Today, manager Rob Thomson, a .580 win percentage, 4 playoff appearances in 4 tries, 346 wins, 251 losses, 2 NL East titles, and 1 World Series appearance. Stay or go on Rob Thomson. Now, he will be back, so this one has already been answered. The Phillies did announce that Rob Thomson will be back. I am not surprised. I would say I am not a blame Rob Thomson kind of guy. I do think the Phillies should have thought about making a change here.
Really?
I do.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's the first time since he's been here that I'm kind of open to it. It's just the regular season wins are nice. 95 wins.
96.
Nice. 96. 95 last year, if I'm not mistaken.
They're the only
East
team.
Titles are nice.
They're the only team in the last 4 years that have gotten more wins each year in the last 4.
Right. Those are all nice. But the postseason failures, to me, it's just too much. So I am open to it. You know, I know after the series was over, the players kind of endorsed Thomson. Harper endorsed him. Turner endorsed him. That probably holds a lot of weight.
Let's start with that.
Office.
The players love Thomson. Okay,
They do.
This isn't them just saying stuff because they can talk around it and say, "Hey, you know, Topper's a great guy." Yada yada. No, they did not want. The players do not want Rob Thomson gone. So that's number one.
The face of the franchise does not want Rob Thomson gone.
No, but this is one of the big conversations here. Bryce Harper. You know, a lot of people want Kevin Long, the hitting coach, gone. He is very entrenched with the 3 guys from the Phillies. Number 1, Kyle Schwarber. Number 2, Bryce Harper. And number 3, Trey Turner. He was the hitting coach in Washington, and it's a big reason why Kevin Long, the hitting coach, is fully entrenched here. They have a high level of respect for Caleb Cotham as well. So it's very unlikely that those 2 guys go. So you're almost looking at a situation where the manager, the hitting coach, and the pitching coach all return. Now, they haven't announced anything about the staff, but if Rob Thomson stays, I would imagine his compadres stay with him. But Thomson...
Oh, really? Well, like a Paco Figueroa, right? Base running guy, awful base running this season.
Yep.
Maybe he's a casualty, scapegoat.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, the Dusty Wathan, the third base coach, do you make somebody like that the scapegoat, or do you make, the first base? That's not going to make anybody in the fan base happy. But I got to imagine right now,
Paco Figueroa probably should not return with the base running blunders that we saw.
Well, if you're saying he's the face of the base running, then yes. But ultimately out there, 609-403-0973. The Phillies are going to bring back Rob Thomson. Yay or nay, are you happy with this decision?
I would say I understand it, so I would bring Thomson back. I am open to it. But
you'd bring him back. Josh?
Yes. I mean, bring him back, I just don't care. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean, but, guys, What would have replacing Rob Thomson have done?
Well, it gives. I would say, again, this isn't about the job of Rob Thomson and whether he's good at it or bad at it. I don't think that's the way I look at this. This is the Phillies are a business. They need people to go through the turnstile every single night. Are people going to be turned off that the same voice is the one leading this team and say, you know what, I'm not going this year. I'm not renewing my season tickets. I think that's what you have to look at more, and I feel like the Phillies decided that they didn't think Thompson was enough of a negative to keep people from coming to the ballpark, so he stays. This isn't about Rob Thompson's good at his job or Rob Thompson's bad at his job, because we all know that they had Rob Thompson a binder, and he follows the binder. That's why they like him, and they win a lot of games because of the binder.
Well, then,
now,
under that premise, I would ask then, are the Phillies saying that because they believe that what will keep people in the ballpark is the moves they can make this offseason?
I would imagine so. That
you can't fire the players.
Right. Well, they think that whatever they do this offseason will be enough to make the fans say, I didn't want Thompson back, but you did enough to bring me back to the ballpark. Because I think there's enough fans out there, don't you guys? I think there's enough fans out there that are over Thompson, that are just done with him.
Well, the bunt did not help, right?
Well, listen,
walking Ohtani did not help.
The bunt's terrible, okay? But you can't judge a guy on one bunt.
No, but if a binder is telling a manager what to do and he gets off, he gets a pass on that premise, then the bunt matters, right? Walking Ohtani matters.
Well, the walking Ohtani, everybody in the world would walk Ohtani.
Oh, they would?
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I think if you put a different manager in there, maybe he would have pitched to him.
I don't think so at all. I
Really?
think every single person in the world would walk Ohtani in that
To
spot.
face Mookie Betts?
Yes. I mean,
Okay.
it comes down to the binder. You have a right-handed pitcher facing a right-handed batter. Ohtani's left-handed.
Do we put too much stock into the binder?
That's. I think so,
If you say that, then Robert Thompson has all the excuses in the world just to continue on as manager. right?
absolutely. But that's the whole thing is everybody wants to – like I talked about this. I tweeted this out last night. We are at a crossroads in sports. All right? We're at a crossroads in sports that I don't know what you do with this whole thing, okay? Here's the situation. The front office, they want to be overly involved with analytics. But when things don't go as planned or by the book, it's the manager who gets the blame. So the front office brings in some new guy to implement their plan. It's just a new face, but the same binder. The analytics have ruined the spirit of competition.
Exactly.
And so, yes, the managers are hard. They get blamed because they're the face of the plan from the front office.
Right. They're the shield, right?
Yes.
Well,
Aaron Boone is the shield for Cashman.
For Brian Cashman, right.
Well, it's kind
They've
of like
come out and said it. We had the audio last week. Derek Jeter and A-Rod both came out and said
I did see that clip.
that Aaron Boone doesn't make any of these decisions. They're all decisions that are given to him from the front office. You saw that clip.
I did.
Okay, and that's
Roster construction is not Aaron Boone's, that's not his job.
right. So Rob Thomson, you might not like Rob Thomson. I had somebody tell me this weekend, I tweeted something out about Thomson, and he says he doesn't like that it's a country club. That's personal. Like some people want a guy who's a little bit more fiery. Some people like a guy more laid back. So if that's your reason, that's a fine reason. You don't like his personality. You don't like that it's a country club atmosphere. That's fair.
The players
You're not
really-
questioning his.
They contribute to that more so than Thompson does.
Well, that's why I asked the
Yeah.
question I did before, which is, are the Phillies telling us indirectly they believe they can make the moves necessary this
The
offseason?
question is, if they brought in a manager who was more fiery, how would that be received by the players that you currently have? Not to mention your top players, your high-paid players. Does Trey Turner in his 30s and Bryce Harper in his 30s, do they want to deal with a guy kicking and screaming and kicking? Now, you might say that's what they need, but it might not work. They had Joe Girardi here. How'd that go?
Well, he was fired for Rob Thompson.
He was fired quickly for Rob Thomson.
And that's why it's important that those guys endorsed Topper as soon as the season was over.
And I think they knew that there was going to be questions, so they got their voice out there quickly that they want to play for Thomson because they don't want to play. Now, you might say as a listener, that's the problem. This is too much of a country club-like atmosphere. And that's just a matter of opinion. Me personally, I don't have a problem with Rob Thomson's laid-back nature. Like, that doesn't bother me.
Right.
Like, I don't watch Rob and say, I need you to go out and get thrown out of a game. I need you to go out and kick sand. I need you to go flip a table. I don't need any of that stuff from my manager. That's not the style of manager that I think is beneficial to winning.
With all that said, he had a terrible series against the Dodgers. Every decision he made, aside from Game 3, was wrong.
Was it
blew up in his face?
Was it more terrible than the pitiful hitting for most of the series?
No. That's a different story,
well, listen,
though.
every decision.
Both things are right.
That's
right?
the thing in baseball. You can make the right decision, but it doesn't work out. You make a pitching change. Yeah, I would have taken the pitcher out here, and it doesn't work. Or, no, why'd you take the pitcher out and you leave the pitcher in too long, and that doesn't work. Just because he made a decision doesn't mean it was the wrong decision because it didn't work out.
Right. And just because the players 1 through 3 didn't show up doesn't mean that Rob Thomson didn't have a good series.
If you fired Rob Thomson and had somebody else as the manager, do those guys hit more?
Doubt it.
Probably not.
Probably not. So, I mean, those are the key things. Like, I agree. The bunt is an awful play. It can be talked about that that's a terrible decision. You don't get fired for one decision, or you shouldn't anyway.
No.
But of the pitching changes, like, I don't think people had a problem like, oh, he took this guy out too early or he left him in too long. It wasn't that. It was the guys that he went to. Like, the decision to take the guy out of the game wasn't really the question. It was, why did you go to Kerkering?
Right. And you know what? It's been 4 years of this. This isn't the first time that Thomson has been under the microscope with some of his decisions in the postseason.
Well, and like a lot of times, a lot of the decisions he made, he got credit for. Like, he was very aggressive, and he was pulling pitchers out and switching guys around and doing this. And again, we don't know who's making these decisions. Like, we just all assume the manager, but a lot of this is planned out beforehand is, hey, this guy's going to throw 90 pitches tonight. You're going to take him out in the 6th inning. Then the first guy you're going to go to is Robertson.
40-year-old David Robertson.
Exactly. But then the funny part is they never went back to David Robertson, so I would imagine.
Why? Well, there's a good reason for that.
I would imagine someone said, yeah, Robertson's no longer the top guy. We're going to move him down to the 3rd guy.
Listen, is Rob Thomson the biggest issue on this team? No, but is he
I agree.
worrisome?
He's not the biggest issue on this team, but that's why I felt that you could have done something.
Okay.
Because he is an insignificant piece of this, and the fans think he's the most significant piece of this. So you can appease them while not really rocking the boat. Because the fans think Thomson is that important. And to move him would be, we're really not making a significant change here. We're just doing something that will make us popular.
Yeah, they probably still win 90 to 95 games.
Right. He won
season.
96 games. You're
right.
telling me if you put another manager in there, what, are they going to win 106 games?
Yeah. To me, the managers really only make a difference of 5 games per year. Per season.
And listen, they make a difference in these playoff moments sometimes where, like, I do think Thomson should be blamed for the bunt. I don't think, now, you could make an argument that the organizational philosophy is to bunt in that situation. I don't think that's the case there because the bunt percentage-wise is not a better play. So I think he did that on his own feel. See, the feel of the manager has been taken away of baseball. Those things are now gone. So I don't know that Rob Thomson has a great feel because you're not allowed to show your feel. You know what I'm saying? You're not allowed to show what kind of feel you have as the manager. So I thought the Phillies could move on from Thomson because it would have been a popular decision with the vocal, I don't know if it's a minority or not, because I do think there's a lot of people out there that do like Rob, that don't think he's the problem.
I mean, I like him. I don't really mind him. I
don't care about Rob Thomson one bit.
He's insignificant.
He's insignificant. Like, if they fired him, I'd be like, okay, fine. And if they didn't fire him, I'm like, right now, I'm like, I feel more that not firing him just lets the group of people who can't stand him, it gives them a reason to not support you.
Now, he would be a lame duck, correct?
He is signed through 2026.
Now, is that a smart decision to have him be a lame duck for 1 year, or does he deserve an extension? I wouldn't think he deserves an extension.
No, I think
right?
I think you go lame dunk. You know why? Because if the team comes out and anything goes 500 sideways, you Girardi him.
Then you can fire him, right?
Yeah. All right, what's the text board saying?
Some interesting comments on the text board, guys. At 609-403-0970. Brandon in Dennisville says, I don't have a strong feeling either way about Rob Thomson, but besides hearing from a new voice and tone, I don't see how a manager is going to fixes the ice-cold October bats from your highest-paid player, says Brandon in Dennisville.
Yeah, I don't think, if you fire the manager, you're seeing a much different on-field product.
Yeah, I mean, is doing that going to make Alec Boehm a better four-hole hitter? No.
Definitely not.
No, it's not. Jim in Williamstown says, hey, guys, it sounds like what you're saying is there will be no need for good managers anymore because everybody's going with analytics. I kind of agree with that, but you can't possibly hold the manager responsible because you're paying him and force-feeding him information.
That is true. Like, I would ask that guy and everybody out there, give me, in your mind, who you regard as a good manager now.
Oh, good grief.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Schilt, he's parted ways with San Diego,
retired.
so he's out.
Yeah,
he said he's
he
mentally fatigued. He can't
Right.
handle it anymore.
Those analytics forced out another dinosaur.
Seriously, and Snittiger, he retired as well. So
Right.
there's another guy out. If you're somebody who thinks the manager makes a big-time difference, give me a good manager. I would ask this question. Is Dave Roberts considered a good manager? You know how many text messages we get in our text chain that talk about how Roberts is the worst manager ever? True or false?
True. 100% true.
I mean, these Dodger fans think that Dave Roberts is an absolute buffoon.
Yeah, man.
You know why? Because he has to follow the damn analytics that makes him look like an idiot.
He's got to leave Clayton Kershaw out there to die.
Is Aaron Boone considered a good manager?
Probably
Don't ask
not.
that.
I mean,
Yeah,
every
I mean-
Yankee fan I know hates him.
Every Yankee fan I know either despises him or understands that Cashman makes a lot of the decisions. Is Pat Murphy a good manager?
People don't even know who Pat Murphy is.
I'm just asking.
I mean, this is his first year with the Brewers, and he's in the NLCS.
My feed the other night, I was watching the Mariner, who'd they just Detroit game.
Yeah.
Half my feed said, why did you leave so-and-so in? My other half said, why didn't you take him out? So
Did you watch that game, by the way? That was a classic. The Game 5?
I fell asleep in the 12th.
That got you.
About 12:15, I finally tapped out.
Was it because it was Detroit against Seattle and you just had
I don't know. I mean, if it was the Phillies, would I have been able to power through? I probably
Yeah, well, if it was like the Yankees against
No, same thing. I would have.
Okay.
I had to get up at 6 o'clock the next morning.
Oh.
So I woke up and said, "Well, you missed that ending at 1:15." I said, "Well, if I would have stayed up for another hour, that would have
not
been a
worth
problem."
it.
But that's what I would ask people out there. If you're listening and you don't like Thompson, give me a manager that you think would be a difference maker for the Phillies. Because I'm giving you the guys that are still left or made the playoffs. Pat Murphy, Craig Counsell just got eliminated. Boone's eliminated. The guy from Schneider, he's the Blue Jays guy. I feel like all I've heard all weekend is how bad all the managers have been. That's what I feel like. I just feel like I constantly hear
Dan
about
Wilson from the Mariners.
Dan Wilson.
Yeah.
All right, Josh, what else we got?
I was going to say, Danny HT has a very interesting text because he says, slam dunk Thompson has to stay. People need to realize the Phillies may have just lost to the greatest team of all time, says Danny HT.
Maybe. I mean, I don't think it's a slam dunk to the listeners or the fan base, Dan and EHC. I think they're like everything. Let me look at the poll question right now. Let me update what the percentages is because I really haven't looked at this today. Because, all right, right now, stay or go. 58% one way, 41% the other way. Do you think that 58% want him to stay or 58% want him to go?
I would say go. Fired.
I would say based on our text, it would be stay.
See, just that answer there. Pete thinks 58% want him to go, and you think 58% want him to stay. Well, 58% want him to stay. So
Wow.
It's about 60-40 that most people right now at Mike Gill Show, vote, want Thompson to stay.
It's a very interesting dichotomy. By the way, a couple more texts I want to get to here at 609-403-0973. Big Alan Violin says, the hitters didn't step up. Every playoff defeat. How do we get these guys to hit in the playoffs?
Don't know. I mean,
Get different players.
you had Bryce Harper hit in 2022, and it helped carry you to a World Series. He also didn't hit in the World Series. They got no hit in the game. I mean, that's the hard part. You need to be a consistently good bat for 4 to 5 weeks to get all the way through. So, yes, Harper carried them to the World Series, and then he cooled off at the World Series. You can't expect a guy to be able to hit for 5 straight weeks.
Does Topper coming back lead you to believe that the Phillies are just going to tinker with this thing and basically run it back? Maybe get rid of obviously Casty or one of those guys, but they're going to run it back with.
I'll tell you what.
Core.
In all the years I've been doing this might be the most fascinating offseason in the time I've been here, because they are right there, but they keep coming up short. But they are in a spot now where they have tough decisions because of the age of some of the guys that they have to decide on bringing back, coupled with the contracts that they currently have that don't expire for still years from now. And it's a very weak free agent class. So you almost can't better the roster through free agency. So you got to get really creative here.
By the way, I got 2 names on the text board for you, Mike.
Okay.
One person says Kevin Cash.
Kevin
Tampa.
Cash is a good manager. Okay.
A.J. Hinch is the other name on the text board.
A.J. Hinch, eliminated, just got knocked out.
Kevin Cash didn't even make the postseason.
No, I mean, he's got his hands tied down there in Tampa. And you can make an argument that Kevin Cash is very analytically driven, and the only reason that Tampa's competitive is they follow the analytics.
Now, people brought up Bruce Bochy. He could come in here and put him over the top. Is that what they need? A guy that could get him over that last hump?
I think the Phillies fans would probably like Bruce Bochy because he's
Right.
perceived to not be an analytical guy.
Dinosaur.
Right?
Yep.
More of an old school, go with your gut type of feel. I don't think the Phillies would ever hire that kind of guy. They're not bringing in a guy who wants to buck what they want to do. The Phillies, people always assume that Dombrowski is the guy. Keep in mind, he's the roster builder. Sam Fold was the GM. He is now the head of, the business department. Preston Mattingly is actually the GM of the Phillies. He's a guy who doesn't get a lot of
how about Preston's dad? Was he a good manager in his day?
yeah. But Preston Mattingly is officially the general manager of the team. And you know what Preston Mattingly is highly invested into? Analytics.
Don't say it. Oh.
Preston Mattingly, the actual GM of the Phillies, is highly into analytics, just like his predecessor, Sam Fold. 2 guys that most Philly fans don't even really know exist are actually the guys who were the general manager of the team. Yes, Dombrowski builds the roster, but I think he listens to a lot of what his general managers say about the analytics. They have kind of forged this old school GM with a new school GM, morphed them together. Dombrowski's the voice of those guys, but those guys behind the scene don't minimize what they do.
And Middleton just writes the checks.
Middleton says,
That's important.
I write the checks. By the way, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, he was in L.A. with the Phillies. What was that locker room like? Dombrowski said today, or they will talk on Thursday, I should say. Dombrowski and Thompson will talk on Thursday. Here's the big thing. By the way, the Eagles had a player retire today who leads the team in a major statistical category. We got that coming up. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, live from the Fanatic Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. Fanatic Sportsbook, Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. The Phillies have announced that Rob Thomson will be retained. They're going to talk on Thursday, and we'll have those comments for you here on 97.3 ESPN. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com. He was out in L.A. last week with the Phillies as they lost in 4 games to the Dodgers. His appearance is brought to you by Broadleaf's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning, serving South Jersey since 1911. Keeping your home comfort game day ready this season. All right, let's start there, Mike. The news today, were you surprised at all? The reports have come out that Rob Thomson will be retained and he will be the manager next season.
Yeah, not really surprised at all, Mike. These days, I think we get on the manager for the decisions he sometimes makes in games, but these days, those decisions are often made by the entire organization. The manager is the tool or the middle manager who is kind of doing what the organization wants. So if you're carrying out the will of the organization, I don't know how you turn the blame to just one guy. And 2, I always have this question. If Rob Thomson's not going to manage the team, who is going to manage the team? I mean, there was a time when baseball managers were larger than life and we could name every manager of every team. That's not the case these days. So who is going to replace Rob Thomson if he wasn't the manager? So I'm not surprised he's back.
Do you look at it and say, look, it's not Thompson's fault? I agree with everything you're saying. He's really the middleman of like the organization's philosophy here. However, if you bring him back and you have a bunch of people who think that he makes a lot of these decisions and they're saying it's his decisions that are costing us, do you look at that and say, you know what, he's an easy guy to change when changing this roster might be difficult?
Yeah, I mean, I know the easiest change, the old saying, you can't change the players, so you change the manager. I would expect some changes to his coaching staff. I think the coaching staff is going to be shooken up a little bit. So I think there will be some changes in that direction. But I don't see – it's not Rob Thomson's fault that when he went to the bullpen, he went and got Matt Strahm and Orion Kirkring. And when Dave Roberts went to the bullpen, he got Roki Sasaki, who came in and threw 3 perfect innings and enabled the Dodgers to really get over the top in that Game 4. It's not Rob Thomson's fault that, Brandon Marsh was batting 5th for the Philadelphia Phillies. These aren't things that you can blame the manager. Now, I admit his moves during the playoffs were questionable. I mean, he made a lot of moves with some sound baseball reasoning, and they almost all seemed to backfire. But one of the reasons they backfired is the Dodgers just made plays. Having watched those 4 games, every pitch of those 4 games in person, the Dodgers are just better. And I don't know how you blame the manager for that.
A lot of people would say, listen, I'm not blaming the manager, but I don't like the very laid back country club-esque atmosphere there. I've heard a lot of that from people. Like, even if you're not blaming him at all, that they just need someone who's got that whole thing. He's too laid back. It's a very country club-like atmosphere. Would it have behooved them to shake that up a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, Mike, usually I'm the guy yelling, get off my lawn or yelling at the clouds. I'm usually that old guy. But I think in today's 2026 world, that's baseball today. You're around a lot of teams. You hear the same thing about the New York Yankees. You hear the same thing about the Dodgers, Dave Roberts' approach. It's not like Rob Thomson's approach is unique to the Philadelphia Phillies. That's the way managers in 2025, 2026 kind of run the team today. And you're not going to have somebody come in like a Dallas Green in 1979, 1980 and start yelling and screaming at the players and turning over buffet tables. That's just not going to work in 2025. So, again, if you fire Rob Thomson, the next guy coming in is going to manage the team probably in the exact same way that Rob Thomson has.
So it looks like Thomson, of course, the reports are that he will be back. They're going to talk on Thursday, and that will be ironed out then. We know, Mike, you were in the locker room and heard a lot of people. It sounded as if universal support for Rob Thomson from the players.
Yeah, I mean, Trey Turner gave him, a glowing sort of recommendation or endorsement. Turner said he does a good job of blending sort of new school and old school. Bryce Harper, said it was a Dombrowski question, but he said that Thomson has been great for the team. Kyle Schwarber, kind of also endorsed him. So, yeah, I think he's a popular figure in that clubhouse. And look, I mean, I know the regression in the postseason is frustrating. I know the postseason losses are frustrating, but this team has won back-to-back division titles and just won 96 games. I think you have to be careful not to throw the baby out with the bathwater, to use that old cliche.
Well, Mike, obviously after that game, it wasn't disappointing. Give me your thoughts being in that locker room. Did it feel like they knew that the finality of this core just happened?
Yeah, I think everybody acknowledges and everybody has a feeling, and I kind of wrote this in my must-win column before the playoffs even started, that this would be the last ride for this Phillies core, right? There's going to be changes, and there should be changes, basically. They have some high-profile free agents. They've got some guys that they can sort of look at, certain positions that they can look at. Yeah, I think there was a sense in that clubhouse that this core, as has been together since 2022, the team is going to look different next season. That doesn't mean that, 5 or 6 guys are gone, but I think there's some key positions that they can look at, basically third base, right field, and left field. I think you're going to see maybe new guys in those spots next season.
All right, so, it's not a great free agent class, so it's going to be hard to go out in free agency and really fix this team. You're going to have to do a lot of that through, making changes and trades and that kind of stuff. You've got some really bad contracts on this team that are pretty much immovable. And I'm not saying anybody, I disagree. Maybe people do. There are people who I think are starting to get tired of the Bryce Harper. I think Trey Turner has never really connected here. Nola, I think people would be fine if Nola had a new home. But those contracts are tough. You do have some tradable guys like Stott and Bohm and Marsh. Castellanos, you got to try to find a way to trade. But do you think the Schwarber, Real Muto, and Suarez situations, 3 guys who you'd probably like to have back, but can you bring them back knowing that you can't have the same look to this team?
Yeah, I mean, as far as those 3 guys, I think Ranger Suarez is gone. I think he's gone, and I think the Phillies have enough starting pitching depth to sort of survive him leaving. So if you look at his staff next year, you would have, Christopher Sanchez, you would have Jesus Luzardo, you have Aaron Nola. I hate to say it, but you're going to have Taijuan Walker probably in the rotation. And I promote Andrew Painter to be a part of that rotation. And those 5 can be the starters until Zach Wheeler is ready to return. I would put Crawford in left field. I would make him the everyday left fielder to start the season. He's earned it with the way he played at AAA. And then, I think Kyle Schwarber's got to come back at all costs. I think he's the guy that you can't go forward without. JT Realmuto, I'd like to bring him back for 2 years. If I had to bring him back for 3 years, I could do it. Any more than that, I kind of think I'd have to walk away from JT at that point and let Marchand catch. The positions that are open to me, Mike, I would bring Stott back. I think defensively he was excellent. I think the way he hit in the second half of the season kind of saved his job. But to me, I look at third base and right field. At one of those positions, I want a right-handed bat that can hit 25 to 30 home runs. I want that guy either in right field or third base. How you get that guy, I don't know, but guys I'm willing to trade, Castellanos, Marsh, and Bohm.
What happens in your mind with Bader?
Interesting question. I'd love to have Bader back, but Mike, I'm a little scared of Bader. I've seen Bader play for the New York Mets. I've seen him play for the New York Yankees. He had a career year in 2025 that just wrapped up. Probably his best season since he was with the Cardinals in, I believe, 2021. I'd love to have him back. I love his defense in center field. I'd love to bring him back because that means I can trade Marsh, right? But I don't want to get carried away in giving Harrison Bader 3 or 4 years. If I could bring him back for 2 years, maybe with an option for a third, I'd do it. But I love his defense in center field, but I'm a little worried about signing the guy off a career year. But if I can get him at a reasonable price and a reasonable contract length, I do it because that enables me then to trade Marsh, to put him in a package or something to get that big right-handed back.
Yeah, I agree. I brought this up last week, Mike, is there's a reason that Harrison Bader has been vagabonding around the league. I mean, he has kind of wore out. I don't want to say wore out his welcome, but just hasn't been, what you got in Philadelphia is not indicative of the player that he has been.
Correct. You got the best of Harrison Bader at the plate. I mean, defensively, he's always been solid, but, he didn't hit for the Mets at all last year. He didn't hit for the Yankees. Again, coming off a career year, I'm a little shaky about that, but I do it because I like his defense in center field. I think that plays well. And it enables me, again, to put Marsh in a package, maybe a trade, where I can get a big right-handed bat. Because, Mike, you look at that Dodger series, and you say, what's the difference in the series? The difference in the series was, right-handed bats. I mean, Teoscar Hernandez, 3-run home run in Game 1. You can make a case that's the difference in the series. The Phillies don't have a guy like Teoscar Hernandez on their roster, and they need to get a guy like that, I think, to compete in the postseason.
That will be, the challenge, though. There's not that guy on the free agent market. I mean, there is a Pete Alonso. Apparently, he won 7 years. So my question to you would be, do the Phillies go back down the road of, signing these guys to these big, long-term contracts that look good when you do them on the surface? Then 5 years into them, you're thinking, oh, my gosh, I still have 2, 3, 4, 5 years left of this guy.
Well, I think that's the price of doing business, but I don't think they're going to be making those sort of signings this season. Again, I recognize that you're not going to be able to get that right-handed bat through free agency. You probably have to trade for him. That's why I'm willing to trade Castellanos. I'm willing to trade Marsh. I'm willing to trade Alec Bohm. I'm willing to trade some of the young prospects, not Aiden Miller, because in the back of my mind, I'm saying to myself, could Aiden Miller be playing third base at the end of next season? Could he be the guy that we're expecting to come up in July-ish of next season, so to speak? So I think they've got to improve the roster. I think one big weakness is power from the right side to sort of balance out the left-handed power. I thought the Dodgers lineup, the way they balance righty and lefty, really makes them effective. The Phillies can't do the same thing. I think they have to figure out a way to do it. And I recognize that you can only probably do it through the trademark because the free agents just aren't there this year. And you've got how many 300 million players can you have, Mike? You already have 2 of them, and who knows what you're going to give Schwarber, because you got to give Schwarber whatever he asks. He has to come back.
Well, here's the thing I would ask with Schwarber. If you bring Schwarber back, you're back in the same position where you're probably batting him 2 and Harper 3, and now it sounds like that's something you're talking about, the lack of, the way that the Dodgers can go right, left, and it kind of, in the series, they had it made where you couldn't change pitchers because of the way they kind of work their lineup. The Phillies have those 2 lefties back-to-back, and that really hurts them.
Right, but that's why, Mike, I say you got to get that big right-handed bat that they've never really had, during this run. I think it's, it's a necessary thing.
So are we at a spot where Harper is now pushing down the lineup? Is he in the 5 or, somewhere further? Because, generally he has hit that number 3 spot his entire career.
Yeah, or you move him up a spot. You go Turner, Harper, the right-handed bat, 3rd, Schwarber, 4th. I mean, I think you can live. I think that would be a big improvement in the lineup if they were able to swing something like that. If you put Teoscar Hernandez in the Phillies lineup at the 3rd spot, then the lineup is a lot better and a lot longer. So, yeah, they need that right-handed power bat. I know it's not available on the free agency. They've got to be creative and go get it using some of the tools they have, some of the current players they have.
Kyle Tucker is available, too, also left-handed.
Right. Again, I'm going to stay away from the lefties. I want a right-handed guy in there. I really think it was a difference in the series. The ability of the Dodgers right-handed hitters to make the Phillies pay for avoiding the left-handed hitters. Look at the last play of the game. I mean, it's kind of strange how it works out, but I thought that was a big deal in the series. The Dodgers right-handed hitters made the Phillies pay for walking the lefties. The Phillies couldn't do the same to the Dodgers.
Thoughts on, real quick, on that note, we were talking about it, the Ohtani walk. It's a big spot in this game, but that's lefty-righty. I mean, you got Duran a righty against Ohtani a lefty. I know Ohtani had been struggling in the series. Did you have a problem with that move?
I did not, and that's the first guess. I was in the Dodger Stadium press box, and as soon as Ohtani came up to the plate, I turned to the guy next to me, and I held up 4 fingers. I'm walking him. I know he was 1 for 17 in the series. I know he was in a slump, but I'm not going to let Ohtani beat me, and I'm more than comfortable with walking him. Johan Duran had never walked a guy with the bases loaded in his career before he walked Mookie Betts to sort of force in a run and tie the game. And I'm sure we go back to the Rob Thomson discussion of what, everybody thinks that was just Rob Thompson's decision. If you don't think that the Phillies front office and Thomson had a meeting and decided, what are we going to do if there's a base open and, Shohei Ohtani is coming to the plate, Mookie Betts is behind him, Duran's on the mound. What do we want to do in that situation? Who do we want to pitch to in that situation? If you was all Rob Thompson's decision, well, then I got a bridge to sell you, somewhere going from the mainland to Margate or something.
By the way, Ohtani against Duran, 2 for 5 with 2 home runs in his career. So probably also.
I'm not going to let the other team's best player beat me. If Mookie Betts beats me, okay. He had a bad year, by the way, so a down year. And granted, that's the Dodger lineup. You might think you're going, out of the frying pan into the fire by walking Ohtani and pitching to Mookie Betts, but a choice between the two, I'm going to walk Ohtani every time. And if Mookie Betts beats me, he beats me, and that's what happens.
Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. The news today, I should say, looks like Rob Thomson will be back as the Phillies manager, and you can read more about it over at pressofatlanticcity.com. And, of course, Mike's back on Wednesday. The guys will talk on Thursday. We'll recap that with Mike on Friday right here on the Sports Bash. Thanks, Mike.
All right, Mike, we'll see you down the road. Thank you.
All right. When we come back, I got a lineup I'm going to throw out there that you could chew on for next year, okay?
All right.
I'm going to throw that out. I have it on Twitter, at Mike Gill Show. Follow me over there. I did put this out over the weekend, so you can look at that. But when we come back, I'm going to throw a lineup out at you. See what you guys think about this potential lineup. McGarry, by the way, brought to you by Broadleys Plumbing, Heating, Air Conditioning, serving South Jersey since 1911, keeping your home comfort game day ready this season. When we come back, I'm going to throw a lineup at you. See what you guys think. We got a lot on the text board, 609-403-0973. Topper's back. They're going to talk on Thursday. A key Eagle defensive player retired today. That's coming up next as well. Sports Bash live from the Fanatics Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. All right, live today at the Fanatic Sportsbook. Yes, they're jamming in here today. No floods, don't worry about it. People canoeing down the street here today.
They really are, man.
Back Connecticut Avenue was a little flooded. I had to take a little bit of a detour to get here. But I'm here. We're here live. I got a lineup I want to throw out at you, all right? I threw this lineup out over at Mike Gill Show this weekend real quick. I know our buddy Steven Ventnor will usually throw me trades that are, like, ridiculous and make no sense.
What, like Johan Rojas for Mike Trout or something like that?
Normally, yes. Rojas, yes.
Actually, they could have used Rojas on that roster.
No, I usually get, like, a lot of Mike Trout trades and then, like, usually some combination of, like, 70 pickups that
I sure hope that Topper would have pinch ran Castellanos for Johan Rojas in that bunt situation.
Rojas was hurt, by the way.
Yes,
That's why
he
he
was.
was not on the roster. All right, so here we go. Free agency, rough year to try to break it up. Free agency does not offer a lot. You got Kyle Tucker, Pete Alonso. If Bregman opts out of his deal,
Oh, I like that for third base.
then here's what lineup I came up with. Turner, second base. Bregman, third base. Kyle Tucker, right field. Pete Alonso. Harper. Bader. JT Realmuto. Aiden Miller. Justin Crawford.
All right,
Miller at short, Turner at second, Bregman at third. Alonso and Harper can play first base. Crawford in left, JT catching, Bader in center, Tucker in right.
so no more Schwarbombs.
If you let Schwarber walk,
Alonso
you would
bombs.
replace him with Alonso and
Yep.
Tucker. Thoughts on that? Grayson's grades, 6 games into the Eagles season. Welcome back. We're live at the Fanatic Sportsbook. Every Monday, you can check us out here at the Fanatic Sportsbook, Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. I'm Mike Gill. Peachy, my on-site producer. Josh Henning back in the Ocean Casino Resort studios. You out there. A lot of Phillies in the first hour. Rob Thomson has been retained. He will be back with the Phillies for next season. Eagles had some big news today. Their top pass rusher to date, Za'Darius Smith, abruptly retired today. What is the messaging there? Did he just fall out of love with football? He said before when he signed, he had a lot of football left in him. It's Grayson's Grades. Scott Grayson from Fox 29 and Grayson's Grades at 97.3ESPN.com. He's brought to you by the Bridgeton Auto Mall. Are you ready to score your next big drive? Head straight for the end zone at Bridgeton Auto Mall. All right, Scott, let's first talk about this. Za'Darius Smith, I don't know how much you've talked to him or been around him, but when he got here, he seemed like, hey, I got a lot of football left in him. Here we are going into week 7, and he has said, I am out of football. He has retired today.
Yeah, this is a little bit interesting, is I think a word to use here. I have not talked to him very much, but I have been around the team after the last 2 losses in the locker room following both games. And I can tell you that, the one loss after the Broncos was, that one hurt these guys, but the one after the Giants was really stinging. And there was a lot of talk, unprovoked, about not pointing fingers, which tells me there must be pointing fingers going on behind the scenes. And you look at this and you say to yourself, well, why would Za'Darius Smith just up and retire? He looks at this and he says, I don't really like where this is going, and I think this is probably my best course of action. That's my thought. That's my guess. It's my speculation. That's entirely what it is. But this leaves the team in even more of a big lurch here in terms of generating a pass rush because they already weren't doing that very well.
Yeah, he leads the team in sacks, and he has one less game than everybody else. And you look at that perspective, no Nolan Smith, now you lose Za'Darius Smith. What is left at the pass rush? We're doing Grayson's Grades after the first 6 games. You already sound like the pass rush has been, not the best grade. Now you lose Za'Darius Smith. What does that say for this pass rush moving forward here? Because I think Jalen Hurts has probably not progressed as much as people would have hoped.
Yeah, I mean, there's guys there. It all starts – we're going to play a little game of dominoes. It starts in the middle. It starts up front with Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter, I think everybody can agree, has not been the player he was a year ago. Now, I get it. He's been dealing with a shoulder. I watched him go up to Drew Rosenhaus on the sideline warming up in New York and talked to his agent. There was a little bit of an animated conversation there, mostly from Drew Rosenhaus. And then I watched Jalen Carter walk over about 10 yards away to where Howie Roseman was. Nick Sirianni walked up. There were a couple other people there, and you could see they were looking at his foot. He turned around, went back into the locker room. We never saw him again. He was not dressed in cleats. He was clearly not going to warm up. That was it. He wasn't playing Thursday night. So the pass rush issues start with him because he takes up extra guys. When he's playing well, he forces them to give, 2 to 3 guys on him, and that allows the job for everybody else to be a lot easier. So without Jalen Carter, everybody else's job is harder. But that being said, they have a job to do, and they're not winning those battles up front right now. I agree with you. Jalen Hurts hasn't gotten there as well. We all looked at Nolan Smith and hoped he would have a better season. Obviously, he's dealing with things. You've got, guys like Moro Ojomo. They're all going to get their shots and try to step up. And it just isn't happening. And now you wonder, okay, what can Vic Fangio scheme up to try to get a pass rush? Because they need a pass rush when you're trotting out Keely Ringo and Adoree Jackson to try to stay in coverage on these guys. The Giants just carved those 2 guys up alone, and that was all they needed to do to beat this team.
Yeah, we're looking at Grayson's Grades on Thursday night. When you go back to that game, Adoree Jackson, a D in the game. Vic Fangio, you gave a D in the game. Kaylee Ringo, an F in the game. So obviously some secondary, but Vic Fangio, you thought that he did a poor job this week?
I think if you read what I wrote with it's almost – I don't like blaming Fangio, and I really didn't like giving him that grade, but you can't argue with the facts. They gave up 34 points. They gave up all those big plays over the middle. But when you look at the chess pieces that Vic Fangio had on his board, I have a hard time blaming him. I mean, there was no Jalen Carter, as I said. You're missing other key pieces. Then you can lose Quinyon Mitchell probably about one quarter into the game. He's probably your best cover guy out there. What is Vic really supposed to do? So I felt bad giving Vic the D, but as a defensive coordinator, that's your group. And they gave up 34 points and lost to an inferior team. I have a hard time blaming him, but the pieces he had to use did not step up. There was no next man up there. It just wasn't good. There was just no effort.
Grayson's great. Scott Grayson from Fox 29. We're kind of looking at the defensive side of the ball through 6 games. You know, the game the other night, that secondary, if Quinyon Mitchell's out for any period of time here, that's an F. They're in some big trouble. How do you look at that secondary so far compared to what you had last year with Quinyon, a rookie, and Darius Slay, the veteran? Now you've got Quinyon in his second year and a cast of characters across from him.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because it all comes back to Howie Roseman, right? The decisions they made in the offseason, who to keep, who to let go. And I think when we all looked at it, the philosophy was sound. I was on board with the philosophy. They thought they had some good young talent ready to step in and fill some of those roles. I think looking back, you definitely should have kept Isaiah Rodgers. You know, maybe you should have tried to keep one of those guys on the defensive line. A Josh Sweat, perhaps. So I think right now what we're seeing is that as good as Howie has been lately, there's some things here that maybe he made a couple mistakes on or oversold the house, so to speak, on what he had. And now there's an opportunity to correct it. And I've got to believe he is working the phones hard right now to look for some way of getting a better pass rush, perhaps a Trey Hendrickson. You know, I've always maintained that I wasn't convinced BG was done.
Whoa.
And you wonder if at some point, I think it's still too early, but at some point, do they knock on that door? Because I think if they did, he would come back to finish the season and give it another run.
Wow. All right. There's some interesting stuff there. Trey Hendrickson, by the way, did not play yesterday or left the game, I believe, had some back problems there. But Brandon Graham, do you see him walking around a lot?
You know, I haven't seen him at the facility lately, but I have also not been there lately because there's all this crazy schedule that they've had with the Thursday game off a Sunday game and all that. So, yeah, no, I have not seen him around. But, you know, that's what I've always kind of kept in my mind. When you see BG, does it look like he's still in game mode? You know, when everything he said around his retirement didn't convince me that this was where he really wanted to go. Now, what can he give you? That's a question you have to ask yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think I know what I'm going to get is effort and heart. Some of that I'm not seeing right now.
Well, certainly not on Thursday night. I mean, the effort and the heart was certainly questioned. I don't know if you questioned that in the first 4 or 5 games of the season, but certainly on Thursday night. The Giants looked like they took great pleasure in running through you. You were in that locker room. What did it feel like in there?
I'll tell you what, Mike. That was the most stunned I've seen that locker room since 23 during the collapse. And it was a little alarming. Like I said, the common phrase, unprovoked, was when you ask some of these guys, what do captains have to do right now? What does the message need to be? It was, we can't point fingers. So I followed that up and said, okay, well, is there a fear that fingers are going to start to get pointed? And again, the answer to that was a lot of times from several guys, we need to make sure that doesn't happen. So this is a very big week to me. And this is a very big game on Sunday coming up against Minnesota because of where this team is right now. So I think that it all starts with hearing from Nick Sirianni. My questions are really, you know, what is the health status of Quinyon Mitchell? You can already tell you right now, he's not going to be committal on any of that. I got to see him get out here and all that stuff.
By the way, Sirianni will be speaking here shortly. We will carry that for you on 97.3 ESPN right after Grayson's grade. So we should get we should get no update on Quinyon Mitchell. But,
he's not going to tell you. Yeah.
But would you be surprised if he plays?
I don't want to say that yet because hamstrings are so finicky. You never know.
And I feel like anytime I hear hamstring and he didn't play the second half, I feel like that's a clear sign that he is probably not going to play. And then
would
it's
be
like,
more
well, can he play next week? And you're like, they have a bye, and maybe you hold him off to the next Giant game.
Well, they have the Vikings and then the Giants,
Then the Giants,
and then the bye.
Yes.
So, but you already lost the Giants without it. It's like, they need to get to this bye badly, and they need to get there without being 4-4. But again, getting back to what I was saying, I think you're going to hear some things from Nick. The big thing to me is when we get around the players again, probably on, I think, Wednesday, right? And then those practices leading up to Sunday, how these players talk, what they say matters, I think, this week in really getting an idea of where this team is right now. Because I think if you read between the lines, there is a real fear there's some finger pointing starting to happen. And we all know what A.J. Brown has been doing, and we know how he operates. And I'm not saying, and I'm not accusing that he is pointing fingers, but I think there's a – look, I'll just put it this way. Let's get to Kevin Patullo.
Kevin
Second
Patullo,
half.
by the way, trying to find him on the grade. Did you give him a grade? Yes.
I thought I did.
He's on the grade. He got a C.
Surprised I gave him a C. I might need to draw a revision here. I was looking last night. Listen to these stats. They've had 34 second-half possessions this season. 15 of them, almost half, have been 3 and out. What's the point I'm making? I have seen no second-half adjustments made by this offense. And as the offensive coordinator, I think you want to talk finger pointing. I'm pointing it there saying, what are you learning in the first half that you are spinning off to and doing differently in the second half? And I would argue there's nothing. They've become predictable in the second half. Opponents are adjusting to them, and they are not adjusting in return. At this level, you've got to make counter adjustments. You've got to be able to say, how you covered this play, I need to say, okay, I'm going to do it that way. I'm going to beat you by doing this differently with it. There is none of that happening right now. They have all 3 turnovers have been in the second half. The second half has been disastrous. We even had one second half where this offense did not complete a pass.
Yeah.
So I look at Kevin Patullo and say, what are you going to start doing differently in second halves here? And with this mini bye where these coaching staffs like to say, we're going to self-scout, what did you learn about yourself over the last few days?
Well, I would ask you this question. Scott Grayson's with us from Fox 29, Grayson's Grades. He was in the locker room on Thursday night. One of the big problems with this offense, you mentioned Patullo. How much of all of this is also attached to the offensive line?
No, that is a problem. And Jordan Mailata owned that. He blamed himself as well as, other people on that line. The line is not playing as well as it did a year ago. That's clear. They were able to create so much space for Saquon Barkley. He'd get 3-4 yards before he was even touched. That is clearly not. He can barely get 3-4 yards total on a carry now. So the offensive line is not playing well. They need to play better. They own that, and I know. And they're not using it as an excuse. But you didn't have Landon Dickerson Thursday night. You have been without some other key guys at times on that line. I don't think Cam Jurgens has played as well as he did last year. I don't think I think everybody on that line has not played as well as they did a year ago. Can they play back?
By the way, Scott, it's both sides of the line. They're losing up front on offense and defensive line, and it's a big problem of where they are both offensively and defensively, because you felt pretty good about where this defense was after 4 weeks. They were keeping you in these games and helping you win some games, and now they have been in the fourth quarter against Denver and virtually the entire night against the Giants have been part of the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And why did they win the Super Bowl last year? Because they won the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball more often than not. And that is not the case here. You're right. And that is something
and
that
they haven't won the battle
fix.
up front against anybody this year.
I would agree. And even and this is another thing that you got to get into. I understand that some parts of special teams have been outstanding. You're blocking field goals and winning games and blocking punts. Okay. You can't catch a kickoff return.
It's unbelievable.
And it's
and
an
you gave
epidemic.
Bigsby an F, by the way. And that whole story is weird. They traded legitimate draft picks to get him.
Again, another Howie move you look at and say, as good as he's been in the past lately, there are some questionable moves here that just haven't worked out. And you could say to yourself, okay, fine, he's not kidding. Your offense starting at the 5 to 10 yard line. The opponents are starting at the 25, 30, 35, even 40. It's a big difference. And when you go 3 and out, as much as I said in the second half, and you're starting at the 10, guess where the other team is getting the ball to start off of that? The 40, 45-yard line.
And in today's world, you need, 15 yards to kick a 60-yard field goal because teams are kicking 65-yarders now.
Absolutely. So all three sides of the ball, all three aspects of the game, this team needs some help, and they've got to fix some issues.
Woo, I can't believe we are 7 weeks in, 4-2, and you're talking about a team that looks disheveled. Grayson's grades are up at 97.3 ESPN.com. Last one we'll grade is the whole situation between Hurts, A.J. Brown. You've been in there. What does it feel like?
Yeah, that's a tough one to put a finger on because, you hear things, you see things, and it's, okay, where exactly is it? Because Jalen is hard to read. He stays pretty level all the time and makes it seem like there's never a big deal, nothing to get too high about, nothing to get too low about. A.J. Brown, obviously, is the polar opposite. You throw like a Devontae Smith in there who's not very vocal, but does want the ball too. And then you add Saquon Barkley. Well, he wants his touches, but frankly, the guy just wants the team to win. So you mix all that in and you say, okay, where are they? And I think, honestly, I don't know. You hear that the three guys met last week, and then you hear A.J. Brown say, I walked up to him at the car. Okay. So where is all this? I think the problem is I feel like we're starting to get very dangerous. You asked me a few weeks ago about 2023, and I wasn't ready to go anywhere near that. I am not saying I'm there yet, but there is a feeling that I'm getting around this team that is starting to feel a little bit similar. Now, this to me is a defining moment. What they do Sunday could be a defining moment to me to tell me what direction they're heading. It was about this time a year ago they started finding their identity. Could they do that again? Absolutely. Is this a wake-up call for this team? It certainly could be. Where those guys are, I'm not sure, but they've got to start leading somehow together in unity. And right now, I think we can say that that's not the case.
Scott Grayson's grades after every Eagles game at 97.3 ESPN.com. Check him out on Fox 29 and, of course, right here on the Sports Bash. Eagles-Vikings, it looks like Carson Wentz will be the quarterback. At least that's where it's trending to start. I'm sure we'll have some fun with that one as well. That's the Eagles and the Vikings, and you can listen to that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. Scott, we'll talk to you, pal.
All right, take care, Mike.
Grayson's brought to you by the Bridgeton Auto Mall. Are you ready to score your next big drive? Head straight to the end zone at Bridgeton Auto Mall. When we come back, it is Nick Sirianni. You're going to hear from the head coach. Za'Darius Smith abruptly retired. Was there a meeting? Was there not a meeting? A.J. Brown, and as the Hurts turns, the Sirianni presser you don't want to miss is coming up next right here on the Sports Bash live at the Fanatics Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Never thought this radio stunt would catch on so big.
On 97.3 ESPN.
All right, we're live at the Fanatics Sportsbook, Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. Don't forget, 2 Monday Night Football games tonight. We're going to have the Bears and Commanders on 97.3 ESPN. Flyers, Panthers will be on first. It'll lead you into the Bears and Commanders. If you're looking for the baseball, that will be on our sister station, Rock 104.1. I know there's some baseball people still out there.
Yeah, Dodgers begin their series tonight against Milwaukee.
You know the Dodgers and Brewers played 6 times this year. Do you know what the record was?
3-3.
3-3?
Yeah.
Brewers 6, Dodgers 0.
Wow.
They beat them all 6 times.
Yeah, our good buddy Blake Snell is starting tonight for.
Blake Snell gets a start. Well, how about some of these games? I mean, you had a Game 5 the other night. The Brewers and the Cubs ran out of pitching. They both had to throw a bullpen game in a Game 5 situation. Think about that.
Yeah, and last night Seattle took care of business against Toronto, and they retired, I think it was 24 out of the last 26 batters against Toronto.
And the pitching there, they were out of pitching as well. They basically just said, all right, let's just throw – who pitched last night? Bryce Miller threw for the Mariners last night, and they said, dude, he's throwing on short rest. But that's what these teams have to do. All right, Nick Sirianni is stepping to the podium. Za'Darius Smith retired today. I'm sure he'll be asked about that and all the other stuff that is happening right now around the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's hear from Eagles head coach Nick Sirianni here on the Sports Bash.
Hey, Nick. I know physicality and toughness are 2 things you've really preached since you've been here. When you watch the tape against the Giants, did you feel like those 2 things were up to your standard?
You know, toughness entails a lot of different things, right? When we speak of toughness, we're talking about our effort, our physicality, and our mental toughness. I think that at the end of the day, they obviously had more yards than us rushing, and so they did a good job. You got to give credit to them. I know how physical our guys are. At the line of scrimmage, and we need to continue to make that what's been successful for us there. I know how tough our guys are, physically, mentally, and effort-wise. But again, when a team has more rushing yards than you, it's not just it's on that. It's on all of us, right? Anytime we're in a streak where we are right now, having lost 2 games in a row. We're not ever here to assign blame. We're here to find solutions, and that's what this whole weekend's about. How do we put the guys in positions to be more physical? How do the guys, how is their rest or whatever it is, from their body, how their bodies are feeling to put them in position. So always look inward first, but we know a strength of our team has been. Winning at the line of scrimmage. And I know I have so much confidence in these guys that, offensive line, defensive line, that we'll get back to that.
We'll go to Martin and then Rube.
Hey, Nick. You guys, obviously last year you had the early bye. You spent that week kind of figuring out certain things with the offense and everything. And I was just kind of wondering, obviously you probably used this past weekend the same way. What kind of things stood out most of all about the inconsistencies you've been seeing on offense so far through the first 6 games?
Yeah, I think obviously this weekend was good for us to be able to really dive into a lot of those things. Obviously, you don't have the same amount of time that you have in a bye week, but you treat it as a mini bye week, and it's also important that there's everyone gets a chance to rest and recover, because when you're on a short week, coaches, players, everybody, you put yourself behind a little bit in all departments. So there was a little bit of rest, relaxation, and then there was a lot of trying to figure things out. Obviously not going to dive too deep into that of what, we have a lot of thoughts, a lot of things that we want to put into action. I know Kevin kind of talked about some of those things with our offense today. But I think just when you look at it, being more efficient on first and second down. So, because right now we're not near our standard on third down. Well, why is that? Well, third and 7+, 8+, it's going to be harder to convert than third and shorters. So, a lot of that is the efficiency. We looked at that. That's in the run game and in the pass game. And coming up with solutions there. Again, you never, not in this sport, do you ever want to get into a situation where it's a blame. So it's always about finding solutions. We feel like we did some of that. Now we got to go put it to work. And I'm excited about that opportunity. This isn't like, you lose this one and then you got to, wait again to play for a year. No, we get an opportunity to go out, get better from this, continue to come together as a football team and get back to work.
We'll go to Rube and then Dave.
Hey, Nick, wondering how surprised you were that Za'Darius walked away from football and what your reaction was. And, what's your confidence level in the other guys you have with Nolan still out for a couple more weeks?
Yeah, obviously, I found out this morning a little bit, obviously, before you guys did. I wish him the best, and I really enjoyed having him on this football team while he was on this football team. As far as my confidence in the guys there on that defensive line, a lot of confidence in them. A lot of guys that have played, young guy in Jalix who's continuing to get better each and every week. My confidence in him is so high. And then you got guys that have played a lot of football and want them to, I'm excited about those guys and continuing to help them get better and within our schemes. So, I feel I like that position. I like the depth that we have at that position. Just the numbers of how they play now it'll be distributed a little bit differently. So, but I have confidence in those guys and that group that we have, and going into this next game.
If I could just follow up real quick, did you have a chance to talk to Z? And if so, did he give you any sense of why he did this now?
I'll let him answer any of those questions like that. Obviously, always keep any conversations private, but wish him the best and really enjoyed being around him for this past month or so.
We'll go to Dave and then Jeff McClain.
Nick, I know it's not obviously all on Kevin Patullo, but where's your confidence level in him to come up with some of the answers to get the offense turned around? Yeah, like I said earlier, it's not in this sport is it ever on one person. And we're not in the business of assigning blame. We're in the business of finding solutions. And so that's what, as we watched the tape today, it was a little on everything, right? And that's this game of team football. I know that, we live in a world that it wants to assign blame, point the finger, but that's not reality of what good teams do. That's not reality of this sport. And got a lot of confidence in Kevin and the offensive staff. And love some of the thoughts that we have. I know you'll ask them, hey, what were some of the things you found on the bye week? They're not going to probably tell you those things either. Just, obviously it's not good for us to share that with our opponents. But a lot of confidence in there. And again, we're all about finding solutions. And that's, I saw that quote of Bill Parcells a long time ago, of finding solutions. And that's what we're in the business of.
We'll go to Jeff McClain and then Ed Kratz.
Does finding solutions during this mini bye, did that result in the decision to change offensive play calling in any way?
No.
We'll go to Ed and then Brooks.
Hi, Nick. Just ask you, Jalen Hurts is typically a very good deep ball thrower. We've seen him overthrow two passes in back-to-back games, his first interception of the season. I know everybody needs to get better, But how would you assess just Jalen's play these past couple of weeks?
Yeah, again, when the ball goes further and further down the field, you're not going to be 100% on those, and there's different reasons again for why a ball is missed, and again, it's never just on one person. It's just not this, but Jalen's throwing the deep ball. We chart everything, right? Where he is in his intermediate accuracy, where he is on his deep ball accuracy, like. That's I don't know if that's a fair question, and seeing that how all these balls that he's putting in great spots that have resulted, the throw to AJ on the vertical ball early in the game, down their sideline, whether it's the deep ball to Smitty last week, or the deep ball to Jahan that didn't go our way with the review. Like, he's made so many good throws like that, and then okay, so then there's two that you perceive that, are not where they're supposed to be. Like, that's football. Like, he's made a ton of throws. And again, there's always different reasons within it. And again, I'm not going to sit up here and say it's this or it's that of, what happened on the play. You're always going to come out of a football game wanting a playback as coaches, as players, everybody. But I think his deep ball accuracy is one of the better deep ball accuracies in the league, which is why I kind of push back on that question there, Ed.
We'll go to Brooks and then John McMullen.
Hey, Nick, you've talked about having conversations with players at all times throughout a week, just this weekend, and players like, Lane Johnson and Jalen Hurts, others that have talked about this offense and getting it back in rhythm. What has this weekend been like? How productive are those conversations if you had them?
Yeah, again, this weekend was about, to look through our, everything like we would on a bye week. We feel like we've had a good process to go through on that. So we were able to do some of that, not necessarily all of it. But also it was important that guys got away and had some time away as well. Won't ever get into any conversations that I have with the guys, but I always value those conversations that we have together. And that's what I believe that we have as a team that is looking for solutions and not assigning blame. And that's huge to be able to have that. And so, because when you're worried about blaming someone, then you're not going to get better yourself, because you're right. And so that's the mindset that this team has, and you value that, and you value that because of the leaders that you have, like Lane, like Jalen, that they're constantly working on everything they can do to get better. And that's what we're trying to do as coaches, as players, as a team.
We have time for two more, so we'll go to John McMullen and finish with Bob Brookover.
Hi, Nick. You mentioned Lane. We know how much respect you have for him. When he kind of mentions predictable when it comes to the offense, is that something, not to assign blame, as you said, but is that something you saw, or is that something you're trying to correct, or does that hold more weight when he says it?
Well, I obviously listened to that response too, and I think that he said a lot of things there. He talked about predictability. We talk about predictability when you're behind the sticks. He also talked about execution. Again, I felt when I listened to Lane's explanation on it, I felt a lot like he was thinking about anything he could do to get better, and then and that's how I felt, and that's how I took it. But you never want to be predictable, obviously. And as you look at teams, it's like, how do we make this team one-dimensional so we can make them predictable in the pass game? It's usually how that goes down. And that's what we've been talking about. How are we more efficient? Kind of back to the first question. How do we be more efficient on first and second down so we don't have that predictability? Because that's what defense are trying to do. Is try to make you one-dimensional so they can play and sell out to a certain thing. And so, whether that's predictability in our run game, whether it's predictability in our pass game, whether it's whatever it is, it starts with run pass, stuff like that. But we're constantly working on that. We're constantly thinking about things through that. Obviously, those were big parts of the discussion because our job as coaches, right, is to put them in the best positions they can be to succeed. And then, obviously the player's job is to go execute. And so we all know we need to do that at a higher level, offensively, defensively, coaches, players, everything.
We'll finish with Brooke over here.
Hey, Nick, when you guys drafted Jihad, you kind of left it open-ended. Is he an edge? You don't want to stereotype where he was, an edge or a middle guy, inside guy. Nakobe's back now. I guess he wasn't really ready to go full board last week. Can you see a scenario? I mean, I would think last year Nakobe was one of your best 11 defensive players. Can you see that scenario where he is back in the middle and you can use Jihad in different ways?
Yeah, I think that we have a lot, we have versatility obviously there, and that we have, a really good linebacker room altogether. We look at everything. We look at everything that we can do to help our team be as successful as we possibly can. Again, we'll see. I'm not going to obviously talk through some of those things. Obviously, I think you guys respect that with not giving opponents any information or anything like that. But really excited about the room. Excited to get Nakobe back in there rolling because we know the type of player he is. And Jihad's played really well, and Zach Baughn's played really well. And Trot's done an unbelievable job on special teams, made an unbelievable tackle in the game the other day at the 20-yard line on kickoff, and Smile's done a nice job as well. So really excited about that group and the things that they bring, both defensively and special teams wise.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate you.
There's Nick Sirianni, everybody, and a couple key things that I think he talked about there. Obviously, some of the stuff that Lane Johnson has talked about talked about in the post-game kind of scrum. He didn't have a press conference, but around his locker, he kept talking about predictability. He was asked if they had changed the play caller. He shot that down pretty quickly with a one-word answer, no. And some other stuff there. Za'Darius Smith, he said, I'll let Smith talk about it, about why he decided to retire, by the way. Hey, we're at the Fanatic Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. NOLA's having their Halloween party on Friday, October 31st. This year, it's your Halloween best, and bring out your best Halloween costume and enter the costume contest at 12 a.m. for a chance to win prizes so good you'll be spooked. Enjoy tricks and treats such as specialty cocktails, live entertainment, and more. Doors open at 6. Arrive by 11 for the costume consideration. The grand prize is a $400 Ocean gift card, an overnight stay in complimentary King Room, and 2 tickets to Bush at Ovation Hall. I think I'm going to that show.
Are you?
Yeah.
Maybe I should tag along with you.
You know who the opener is?
Live or Collective Soul?
Soul Asylum.
Oh, that's a blast from the past.
Good one there. All right, we'll have plenty more. Za'Darius Smith retires. Now what for the pass rush? And some of the things that Nick Sirianni said. We are live at the Fanatic Sportsbook. But coming up next, it is our unsportsmanlike moment of the day. Stick around. It's 97.3 ESPN.
They kind of remind me a little bit of the Lions last year. I know the Lions were so dominant on the offensive side of the ball, but when we looked at that team, the only thing that really stopped them was the injuries, things that were completely out of their control. That's what I feel about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now. I trust them enough to say the only thing that can beat them are things that are really out of their control, which is injuries.
Michelle Smallman this morning. It's our unsportsmanlike moment of the day, brought to you by Whitehorse RV Center. Find closeout savings on 2025s in select pre-owned RVs. Shop now before they're gone. Whitehorse RV, your RV adventure starts here. She said that about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. She said, that's the one team I trust right now. The only thing that can hold them back is injuries.
I would actually disagree with her because yesterday they put up 30 with no Mike Evans, no Godwin, no Bucky Irving, but they do have one guy, and that guy is Baker Mayfield.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The Eagles went on the road and beat that team.
They did.
Not last year.
3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago.
Yep.
So she's saying that the Buccaneers are the best team right now, and the Eagles went on the road and beat them.
No,
what is wrong with this picture right now? Is she wrong? Is she right? Or is that tell you how quickly things have deteriorated with the Eagles?
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles just got dragged up and down the field by the New York Football Giants.
How do you win on the road at Tampa against the Rams and then get bushwhacked by the New York Giants?
And also, by the way, going to Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs.
Who looked good last night.
We saw last night. That's hard to do if you're the Detroit Lions.
It is a crazy statement by her, but is she wrong? Are the Buccaneers right now the best team in the NFC? And that's including, like, you lost at home to a team right now that can't get anything right. You lost at home. I mean, that's what this league is right now. So are we wrong to be in panic mode if you're an Eagles fan saying, hey, look, you're good enough to beat Tampa Bay. You're good enough to beat the Rams. You're good enough to beat the Chiefs. You just had an off week. Look, Denver's a pretty good team, but I would contend you lose that game at home against Denver, that's no good. You got to win that game at home against Denver. And then the Giant game, there's a problem. That tells me there's a problem. If you could go on the road and beat Tampa, and then you could lose a game at home against – did you watch Denver yesterday?
I did.
They look like a –
I had to wake up early and watch that thing.
How early? It was a 9:30 game.
9:30, yeah.
I mean, you had to wake up early.
Well, okay, let me rephrase that. I woke up and immediately turned the game on.
Did you wake up at 9:27?
Yeah. I normally don't do that. I'm not getting right into football mode at 9:30.
These games have been on every single week.
Every week I got to wake up and put my TV directly on the NFL Network at 9:30.
You don't like it?
No.
Oh, come on. Well, you're going to get that international window every week coming up, I'm assuming.
The rest of this month, I think.
Rest of this month.
Is there a game next week?
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go. 9:30. They're done in London.
Actually, this London game I think coming up is pretty good.
No, they're done in London. They're going to, like, Germany next and then someplace else. But I'm telling you, like, she said that. I'm like, you know what? Are the Buccaneers the best team? And then the first thing that came to my mind is, the Eagles went on the road and won there. They won down in Tampa. Not an easy place to win, even when Tampa's just average. It's always hot and sweltering, and I don't know what to make of what's going on with this team other than they have some problems with, as Nick Sirianni said, we're not in the blame game. We're looking for ways to fix things. We're not pointing the finger. But just for context, by the way, Jeff McClain asked Nick Sirianni if he was going to change the offensive play caller during the mini-bye. Sirianni kind of laughed it off and almost was insulted by the question. He said no. McClain tweeted out, for context, this was the week that Sirianni changed the play caller in 2021. It was during the mini-bye when he turned things over from Sirianni to Shane Steichen. So that's why he asked the question. 2 years later, during the bye week, he stripped third down play calling from Sean Desai, and that's why he asked that question. So did you think that question was out of right field?
No, not from what McClain just kind of defended
But when you
himself.
heard it.
Yes.
No, because I think that anybody who's an Eagles fan is probably asking the same question.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with that question. Sirianni was, insulted by the question. He shouldn't have been insulted.
Patullo is his guy.
I get it, but
is that part of the problem?
I
though?
think the answer was what you expect it to be, but he answered it as almost like, "How dare you ask that question?" Like, seriously?
You believe those walls are starting to close in a little bit?
Here's the problem.
Or a lot of bit.
Here's what I would say: you better hope Petula doesn't get fired. You want another offensive coordinator? You better hope this guy can figure it out, because if you fire him, you got to bring in another offensive coordinator. How many is that going to be? 9? 10? Can't do it. 7 is the actual answer. When we come back, Jeff Mosher will have more on what we heard for football at 4 today, and it's next on the Sports Bash.
Home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
They've got him. It's a sack.
Sixers.
Oh, baby.
And Flyers.
He scored!
97.3 ESPN. WENJ. WENJ HD. Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey.
Does finding solutions during this mini buy, did that result in the decision to change offensive play calling in any way? No.
All right, that was Nick Sirianni today. Asked if they were going to make a change in the play caller. He did not seem to like that question all that much. Was it a fair question? Let's bring Jeff Mosher in. It's Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast and brought to you by the Fanatic Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. You know, McClain did tweet later on that the context of the question was, Jeff, that they did change play callers during the mini bye week in 2021. Did you think that was is that a fair question to wonder if the Eagles need a change at the play caller position?
I mean, you could debate it on both sides. I mean, I think that question is going to be asked regardless because of Eagles not looking good offensively, not playing a full 4 quarters offensively through 6 weeks of the season. And, you know, the context of the play caller change he's made before was a little later in the season, and they kind of had a guy in Matt Patricia that they brought in almost, I don't want to say for that reason, but in case they felt they needed to make a change. There's no senior offensive advisor here that you're going to hand play calling to. It's either going to be Kevin Patullo or Nick Sirianni is going to do it himself, and I don't think Nick Sirianni is going to do it himself. So I think that they're more just likely to figure it out, and if it doesn't work after the year, who knows? But that's the way it's going to be.
Let me ask you, like, if this doesn't work and they're going to figure it out again, like, where's this trending that you just constantly keep changing the coordinator? Like, at some point, you would think that that has to stop. Like, and I get it. If you get a guy who's really good and he gets hired, there's nothing you can do about that. But you want to try to find your Vic Fangio, your guy who's okay with being the coordinator and saying, you know what, I've been the head coach. I've been that guy. This is my new gig now, and I'm here for the long haul. Like, it feels like that's the direction maybe they should have looked at.
No, I don't agree. I feel like, people and I wrote this too on Saturday on Philly Voice. I don't know if people realize this, but the Eagles have scored more points through 6 weeks this year than they did last year. I think everybody needs to remember what they felt about Kellen Moore last year through 6 weeks when they had scored 15 points against it was 20 points against Atlanta in a loss, 15 points against New Orleans in a win, 20 points against the Browns, and then the week after against the Jaguars, it wasn't much better. I don't have it in front of me, but they were not an offensive juggernaut. And, you know, Kellen Moore was trying, to your point, Mike, Kellen Moore, as an experienced play caller, was trying to bring elements of his offense to the Eagles' offense. But then eventually it started looking more just like the Eagles' offense of the last 3 or 4 years, except he had something that his predecessor and now Kevin Patullo don't have, which was a really strong running game, which is, let's be fair, the offensive coordinator doesn't design and the play caller doesn't design the runs. So I think that it's a little bit too much is falling on Kevin Patullo. And if you change the play caller again at the end of the year, what the Eagles are sending the message is, which I think is unfair, is that a first-year play caller cannot succeed or is not a good option. If you look across the league, there are plenty of good first-year play callers, and there are plenty of retreads who do a bad job, by the way. So I don't think there's a specific formula. I think that the Eagles are missing what they've had last year, which is a really strong offensive line play and a strong running game to compensate for what they've had for many years, which is a up and down offense.
Yeah, and and I agree with what you're saying in terms of there's no formula. I'm just talking about maybe for some stability there is to finally get somebody who says, I'm going to be the guy for the next 3 to 5 years, and that you can grow an offense. This formula of hiring a guy, he leaves, hiring a guy, replacing him, hiring a guy, he leaves. I mean, it is hard to overcome that, and that's what I'm saying. You better hope they don't fire Patullo, because that means you got to hire another new guy, and then we're going around the hamster wheel again of what's this offense? This guy ever call play? That's why it's like, hey, is there a veteran offensive coordinator who's okay with being an offensive coordinator? I don't know that guy exists. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Just thinking out loud.
Look at the hiring cycle, and I wrote this. Sometimes you're only as good as what's available. And I thought Nick Sirianni caught a break last year in the offseason when the Chargers cleared house and a guy like Kellen Moore became available. Who was available this year that Eagles fans would have really liked? Oh, Doug Peterson and Press Taylor? Nope, probably not going to happen. How about Chip Kelly? He got an offensive job, coordinator job. Nope, probably not a good fit for Philadelphia. So then you go around and look and who would have been that guy that, got fired or was open for a job. I mean, maybe John DeFilippo, he's a friend of Inside the Birds. I would vouch for him every time, but he was already with the team once. It's hard. The reason why you have good coaching staffs, right, and good coaches coming up is that you want to be able to prepare them for that moment when they can become your play caller. Vic Fangio isn't going to be around forever, and if he retires, you would love a guy like either Clint Hurt or Christian Parker, who's been with the system and come up through to then become the play caller and not have to go out there and hire someone who happened to become available. It's just to me like the way you develop players, you need to be developing coaches, and you can't just give them 6 weeks before you fire them.
Now, I know this wouldn't happen, but Brian Callahan just got fired as the head coach. He was the offensive coordinator in Cincinnati with two pretty good wide receivers. That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
I mean, would it? I mean, the results weren't very good in Tennessee.
Not in Tennessee, but let's be honest. They don't have a lot of talent in Tennessee. His results were pretty good in Cincinnati, and there's so many times where we have these conversations when the team struggles, and we always seem to say, well, you have Brown and you have Smith, and we always say, well, they got Chase and Higgins, and they don't seem to struggle in the pass game, with a guy like that who is saying, hey, listen, I know how to design a pass game for two good wide receivers. Would it behoove you to jump on a guy who's available at a time you didn't think he would be available? And I'm not saying make him the offensive coordinator, just saying hey, maybe you need some ideas in this offense, because it's obvious, not just from what we're watching, two Jamokes watching tape and stuff. We're talking about Lane Johnson, your biggest veteran, most respected player. When he comes out and says, this is a predictable offense, we know the passing offense has been predictable, would it be crazy to say, let's bring in a guy who maybe has had success in a pass game with an offense someplace else?
I mean, it's not crazy for after the year and when you need to reevaluate. I just, you don't bring Brian Callahan now to neuter Kevin Patullo. And by the way, Zach Taylor is the Bengals play caller, and I believe he always has been. So if you're bringing in Brian Callahan to call plays, the only time I know that he's called plays is for the Titans. So, and that
I'm not suggesting to call the plays. I'm just saying to maybe add some life creativity to your pass offense.
Yeah, I think that, again, if you go back to last year, you just got to get – Vic Fangio must have been a terrible coordinator for the first 4 weeks of last year because the Eagles were getting carved up in some of those games like Swiss cheese, right? I mean, they looked embarrassing against the Bucs.
Well, let's talk about that. What's going on with Vic Fangio's defense last week where they look like they got their whole heart and soul ripped out of their chest by the New York Giants?
Yeah, man. People are going to want to watch Inside the Tape come this week with Greg Cosell on Inside the Birds because he is going to break down that defensive tape. And I can tell you, when you're giving up completions to guys like little Jordan Humphrey, who was elevated from the practice squad, Wan'Dale Robinson, who's just a slot receiver, but wound up having a 17-yarder, a 25-yarder, 34-yarder. The obvious circle you draw around Ringo, and then Adoree Jackson had to get in there. But I just thought in general the Eagles were not strong at the point of attack. The tape showed that. They gave up too much in the run game, and that's surprising. I know they didn't have Jalen Carter. I know they didn't have Quinyon Mitchell. I'm not quite sure that's as much of an excuse though, to look as poorly as they did in all facets of defense.
Jeff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. It is Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and we're looking at this Eagles team getting ready for the Minnesota Vikings. Za'Darius Smith announces that he is retiring today.
Doctor.
This comes out of right field. What do you make of him just making this announcement here? I mean, do you look at, is there a layer here? Is this just like, you know what, my heart, I thought was in it? Because he did say, I got a lot of football left in me when he signed here, and now all of a sudden he has no football left in him. He ends up retiring. Number one, why do you think that was? And number two, what does that leave the Eagles with at that position? Because he was their best pass rusher to date.
That's the shocking thing, Mike. I mean, it would be one thing if he was playing and he felt like I just can't do it anymore, but he was probably their most consistent pass rusher since he joined the team. I thought it was a little odd, and I don't know if this is behind anything. I thought it was a little odd that Ojulari started opposite Hunt against the Giants and not Za'Darius Smith. But the snap count wasn't all that out of whack. I'm surprised. I know he's 33, right? So maybe just the body didn't feel it anymore, and didn't feel like going through the rigors of the day-to-day anymore. But it certainly leaves the Eagles in dire straits at a position that they weren't getting great production at to begin with. So now you have Jalen Hunt. Now you have Ojulari, who is inactive for the first 4 weeks of the season, having to play a bigger role. You got to wait for Nolan Smith to come off IR sometime in November. So really you're just rolling with Hunt, Ojulari, Josh Uche, who's been okay. All these guys have been okay. They're not playing badly. I think people are a little bit underestimating the Eagles' edge rush. It hasn't been great, but it hasn't been bad. But it's certainly not deep. And now it's thinner until Nolan Smith comes back. I got to imagine Howie Roseman will be scouring again the trade market. It's hard to go out there and trade for like an elite edge rusher. If anything, you're hoping to get a good player, but you might just get a player who's on the same level as Ojulari and Uche.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like essentially what you already have, and you're hoping to get more from. Do you think that they are disappointed by what they've gotten so far from Jalen Hunt?
No, only because I know Vic Fangio has said that there's a lot of learning there to be done, and he's a second-year player. And, it's easy to flash for a couple of weeks, and last year he flashed at the right time in the playoffs, the Super Bowl, but he was also surrounded by Josh Sweat and Milton Williams. That's the biggest difference, I think, in this defensive front is that while everybody's playing fine, there's nobody who you can look at and say this guy's hurting the team. They just don't have two guys who are just killing it on a weekly basis the way Sweat and Milton Williams did last year.
Yeah, and then, of course, it doesn't help that you'd have Jalen Carter the other night, and you wonder, he just hasn't been nearly as impactful so far this season for whatever reasons. I mean, he gets thrown out of the first game, but he certainly doesn't look like he has been as disruptive as an interior guy.
It's true. He's only played 4 of the 6 games, and he's battled that shoulder that we've all seen him kind of like grimacing at times on the sideline, and then it's a heel, which is always a tough injury for a 300-pound guy. When he played against the Broncos, surprisingly in pass protection, they did not double team him. They slid toward Moro Ajomo, so they felt like that they could single block him. There are times he's been struggling to get through double teams. And again, this is making it sound like he's having a bad year. He's not. He's just not having the same year and impact and effect on a snap-to-snap basis that he had last year. And they need to get that back. But kind of like what we're saying with Landon Dickerson and kind of like what we're saying with Cam Jurgens, post-surgery and all, can he get to that level if he's going to be banged up all year? That's the question.
That's 100%. And then, of course, you talk about banged up. You had Quinyon Mitchell, and that's a hamstring, and that word and hamstring and corner going together doesn't sound good. I mean, it would appear that we're not going to get any news on him for this week, but it seems like a stretch to think he's going to be back out there after he wasn't able to get back on the field on Thursday night, right?
Maybe. We'll have to see Wednesday. I just because he didn't come back in the game Thursday night doesn't, to me signal that he's definitely hurt worse than it is. I would say probably 99.5% of the time when a cornerback leaves a game with any kind of hamstring, whether it's a tweak or a more major pull, they say questionable, but a guy is not coming back into the game when he plays that position and has a hamstring injury, because that's one of those injuries that even if you just minorly tweak it, you can make it worse immediately, right? It's not like a play through the pain type of injury. So he could have just stubbed a toe and he probably wasn't going to come back in that game because of the nature of the position.
But he went out and it really got bad. I mean, you're going with Adoree Jackson, Kaylee Ringo. I mean, it was bad. And then one has to wonder how much longer you can go with Kaylee Ringo and Adoree Jackson as the other guy.
So Adam and I talked about this, Adam Kaplan and I, on Inside the Birds that came out this morning. And listen, at some point, it's on the coaches to put the players in the best position to succeed. And sometimes that means coming out of your comfort zone for the betterment of the defense. I don't think it would be a detriment as much to this defense if you I think I might have lost you because I didn't hear. If you can hear me, just nod yes. You can. Okay. Did you get my point about playing Cooper DeJean on the outside? Okay, well, that's what I was trying to say. I think that it makes sense to play Cooper DeJean on the outside, find a better option at the nickel. You know, I know Makuba has not played great there, but he has that experience. Or Parry Nickerson is a rare practice squad guy who's actually played quite a bit of nickel in the NFL before. So it may be your better option to go that way and then move Cooper DeJean outside. You might be muted, Mike. See if you can unmute because I can't hear you now.
You can check him out on all podcasting platforms, phillyvoice.com, and right here for Football at 4 on the Sports Bash. All right, Moshe. Thanks, buddy.
All right, my friend. Have a good one.
All right, there you go. Mosher in a interesting thing that he brings up there is that what about Cooper DeJean as moving to the outside, and then you're going with a different guy in the nickel, which really changes the complexity of their whole defense. I mean, everything they do defensively really is predicated on the fact that you have Cooper DeJean kind of like a Rubik's Cube. You can do whatever you want with that guy, but it could get to that point if you continue to be such a problem on the outside with these two guys. And then, of course, if Quinyon Mitchell doesn't play this week, that would open up a whole nother ball of wax where you're just like constantly
against who plays wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings?
Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
Yep. And then you have, of course, Carson Wentz looks like right now. Now, Wentz has a injury himself.
Right.
He has got a shoulder problem, I think.
Yeah.
And then J.J. McCarthy isn't healthy enough yet to start practicing, but they haven't ruled that out yet. But it looks like it's trending towards Carson Wentz playing against the Eagles on Sunday. Now, I thought that game was here for some reason, and it's in Minnesota.
Yeah.
But I thought the game was here, and I said, man, how great would that be to see Carson play at home in Philadelphia against the Eagles there. By the way, our Football at 4 segment, as always, is brought to you by the Fanatics Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, which is where we are every single Monday. And, I think when we look at the Eagles, I was talking about Brian Callahan got fired today. And he was a lame dunk coach that ends up getting fired in Tennessee. He is formerly the offensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Right, worked very closely with Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. That was an offense that got to a Super Bowl, which helped him get hired as the head coach in Tennessee.
Joe Mixon was on that team.
So they were able to mix in the run, no pun intended. They were able to mix in the run and have a very dynamic pass game. And I'm not saying to hire him and fire Kevin Patullo, but how about bringing in a guy to just say, hey, listen, these are some of the concepts that worked for us in Cincinnati that we had a lot of success with guys like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Who was the other receiver? They had a third guy there too, didn't they?
Yeah.
Tyler Boyd.
Tyler Boyd, yes.
Good job, Henning. Now,
Tyler Boyd, the Pitt guy?
I had to double check that.
Now, Mike McDaniel, he's another name that probably is going to lose his job, sooner rather than later. Is he a guy that you bring in along the same lines as Callahan?
Well, two things there. One, just about McDaniel. McDaniel's situation is complicated, guys, because I don't know how much you've been following this, but apparently the players love McDaniel. They didn't love Brian Callahan in Tennessee. So apparently part of the reason for Callahan.
Well, I tell you why they like Mike McDaniel. They don't have to show up to anything.
He's 1-6, too.
Jeez. Yeah, I really like this guy. I don't have to come to any meetings. I don't have to be on time for anything. This is great.
By the way, Tyler Boyd did go to Pitt. You are correct.
That's why he was forgettable.
The other side, nice. The other side of this is the fact that, remember, how many times we heard over the years, the Eagles, why didn't they bring in Frank Reich? Why didn't they bring in this guy? They never bring anyone in, guys, to help these coaches.
Well, they did a couple of years ago, as Mosher said, but they did it at the beginning of the year. They hired Desai, but they brought Patricia in to
That's
have a
on the
safety
defense,
net.
but not
Right.
on the offense.
Well, I'm just saying they have done that in the past where they had a guy. I agree. And I said to Mosher, I think they hired Patullo as a loyalty thing, and instead of – what if Patullo was really good? Let's just say they're scoring 35 points a game, and then he gets himself hired again. Now you got to hire another guy.
So you hire somebody just so you don't have to hire a new one? Hey, Kevin, you're not good enough to get a head coaching job.
From within? Do you keep promoting from?
I know that sounds ridiculous, right? But it's my point is, I'm not saying they should have hired Doug Peterson. But my point is, you find a guy who maybe says, I don't really yearn to be a head coach anymore.
Do you like the idea of promoting from within?
If it's deserving, like, I don't think there's any right or wrong way. Like, if you find a candidate that you feel comfortable with and that you like and you think is qualified, hire that person however you find them, like, regardless of whether they worked for you before. Like, let's say you work with me for 7 years, and then there's a guy who I meet for the first time, and I see his reel, and I say, you know what, this guy's stuff's better. I'm sorry. Like, I don't just say because you're the guy who's been sitting next to me for 7 years that you're better than that guy.
That kind of happened with the Eagles. I mean, did Patullo get passed over?
No, I think Patullo got hired, not passed over.
With Kellen Moore, do you think Patullo did get passed over and they hired Kellen Moore instead?
Deservingly so. They did the right thing. They found a more qualified guy. They found a more qualified guy than the guy who was sitting next to him.
So then is Sirianni too comfortable with Patullo?
Well, I think it was a comfortable hire for him, that he felt like this guy had been loyal and had been with him, and it was his chance. It was his time to get that job. And they did it with Brian Johnson. Right?
Well, it didn't work out, so
No,
that's
it
the
didn't
broad
work out.
mentality.
And that's the point, is there were better candidates than Kevin Patullo. They gave him this job because he had been the loyal guy. And that doesn't mean that doesn't never works, but my point is saying Brian Callahan is a guy who was an offensive coordinator on a team that went to a Super Bowl. Now, as Mosher said, he doesn't call the plays in Cincinnati. He did not call the plays. But could you say, hey, we're going to bring this guy in as a way to infuse another layer to our offense?
That is a drastic step for where this team currently is, I would say. They still are 4-2, right?
Now, here's the thing with Brian Callahan. I would imagine if let's just hypothetically say he got hired to be the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, and he has a good year, he's young enough that someone else is going to hire him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because he would be the play caller here. So there's the problem. Like, you're in this rut now where you've had 7 different play callers.
Well, 6 right now, and a new one will be 7.
The next play caller would be the 7th
Right.
for Jalen Hurts. You got to get out of this, like, hiring a guy, he leaves, hiring another guy, he's not good enough, so you fire him, you bring another guy in, and then that guy, I mean, you got to get out of this rut somehow.
You got to get out of it, but you also got
not a recipe for success long term here.
But you also got to stop, dating people just because you're comfortable with them.
Agree with that. That's what I'm saying. You don't hire the person because of comfort. You hire the person who's the best candidate. And the Eagles didn't do that. They didn't even look around. They didn't even try to see what was out there.
For all we know, there could have been a 9 out there, and they settled for a 6.
Looks like it. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Rob Thomson is back with the Phillies. They announced that today, that Rob Thomson will be retained as the Phillies manager. Za'Darius Smith has retired. So the Philadelphia Eagles need an edge rusher. All that and more coming up next. And by the way, did you see Joel Embiid?
I did see the blue and white scrimmage, right?
What the heck was Joel Embiid doing playing in a scrimmage the other day? Dunking? I just saw a picture of Embiid from the scrimmage the other day. I got to be honest with you. I saw the picture. I didn't even recognize him. He was so skinny.
It's all part of the ramp-up process.
Wow. That's all coming up during Knicks Nuggets next on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN.
You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
And it just keeps getting better.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
All right, time for the Nuggets. They're brought to you by the Hub Gear that works as hard as you do. It's the Sports Bash live at the Fanatic Sportsbook, Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. They got UFC this weekend, 2 o'clock start. UFC 321 right here at the Fanatic Sportsbook. Stop out. UFC 321. It's actually October 25th, not this weekend. It's next weekend. And that is right here at the Fanatic Sportsbook. All day you can watch it. It all starts at 2 o'clock. All right, let's bring in Earnshaw. We got a lot happening today. It was one of those days you didn't know where the show was going to go. And then all of a sudden, Rob Thomson, it was announced that he will return as the Phillies manager. And then it was Za'Darius Smith. He ends up retiring. So we got a lot of stuff happening all of a sudden. Nuggets, what's going on?
Yeah, a lot going on today for sure. Rob Thomson, you put out the poll question early in the day before the news dropped. And then all of a sudden, boom, he's back for 2026. And they're going to have a final press conference, Dave Dombrowski, Rob Thomson, on Thursday at 11 a.m. So I'm sure we're going to get a lot of nuggets and a lot of things cleared up on Thursday morning or late around lunchtime with Dombrowski and Rob Thomson. And I'll start with that. That's where we got to start with the Nuggets. Rob Thomson is back. He's going to be the manager next year once again. And this is his final year of his contract. So he's heading into the final year. He does not have an extension after this year. So I could see one reason why they brought him back, one more shot. And if I'm going off your poll question, which I believe it's still Rob Thomson leading for stay at the moment instead of go. Right now it's 59% to 41%. I would lean stay as well with Rob Thomson. I don't think it's all on him. I can't put it all on him. Now, did he make some colossal mistakes in the postseason? Sure. But that is because of the roster that was constructed by Dave Dombrowski. The talent level was not there, okay? Especially in the bullpen, not there at all. You lose Zach Wheeler as well in your starting rotation, so that bumps everyone up a spot. And I thought he made a great move starting Nola and then bringing in Ranger. It worked out. So there was a couple of things that worked out, a couple of things that did not work out with Rob Thomson. But the guys respond to him. I think you give him one more shot. He's a lame duck manager, one more year on his contract. I think it's the right move to bring him back. Remember, he's only the third manager in Phillies history to win back-to-back division titles. He's made the playoffs every single year after they were awful to start in 2022, went to a World Series. I think you bring him back for one more shot. I think it is the roster that needs to change more so than Rob Thomson skedaddling out of here.
I agree that the roster needs to change more, but I don't know how much you can do that, and I don't know how much you can bank on that. So I think the first move of the dominoes is I might have to make a change in the dugout because I don't know that I can change this roster up. What if I can? And then I'm bringing back the whole same thing. Like, we've had people texting in saying they're not going to renew their season tickets. Look, Rob Thomson, for the people who like him, they like him. For the people who don't like him, they really don't like him. And you have a lot of people that are waiting or looking and yearning for a change in this organization, in this team. And I don't know how much you're going to be able to change this roster. I know we all just assume, they got to change the roster. They got to do something. There's no guarantee. Everybody is signed except for Schwarber, Realmuto, Suarez. Those are three really key guys that I feel like everybody wants to bring back. So by changing the roster, you're letting either those three guys walk or you're now pulling off trades. And there's no guarantee that you're going to pull off a trade. So if you can't guarantee that you're going to pull off a trade, the thing that you might have to do is change the person who's in charge. And by them not getting rid of Thomson, you've now opened the door for running it back again if you can't make the deals that you hope you can make. I imagine this team wants to try to trade Bohm. They wanted to trade Bohm last year, and they couldn't. He had more value last year than he does now. You want to try to trade Castellanos. I don't know that there's any takers for that. You might want to try to trade, say, Bryson Stott or Brandon Marsh. Who knows if anybody wants those guys? So now you bring Thomson back. You are opening the door for potentially running the same team back again.
I'm not saying it's not there, but that is, I think, what needs to happen. I think that Dave Dombrowski has to look at this roster and say, all right, we have to make some really tough decisions heading into next year. They could just run it back. They could do that. And look at some of the free agents. It's not strong. And just looking at
it, I personally, again, I'm saying this. I think Thompson is an insignificant part of this.
I agree.
You could bring in another manager. We're going to have the same conversation at the end of the year. This guy stunk. He didn't do the right things. He blah, blah, blah. McGarry was on earlier. He said, if you think that the front office is not involved in all of these decisions, you're fooling yourself. That being said, I agree 100%. Rob Thomson is an insignificant piece of this team. It's winning and losing. Yes, he makes some decisions here that are baffling. Those decisions are all based on analytics that the organization wants them to do. That being said, I understand the optics. This is an optic decision. The optics of it to a lot of people right now is it's his fault. Why is he back? This is an optic decision for me that you cannot bring him back because of the optics of it. Unfortunately, optics don't win and lose games for you.
No. And listen, he's got one more year left on his deal. This is it for his contract, right? 2026 is it. So this might even be his last season with the Philadelphia Phillies if they falter again in the postseason. So you might just have one more year with Thompson and then say after this one, all right, we move on. And another piece of this puzzle.
When I saw that they gave him an extension, I had forgotten that they had given him an extension through 2026. When I saw that, I pretty much just realized that he was going to come back.
Yeah, one more year left on his deal, so it makes sense that they're bringing him back. And listen, if they fall apart next year in the postseason, then he's probably done. They will not renew his contract, and they'll probably move on and get a new voice in there. However, the big part of this,
you're almost now open it up to say you wasted a year.
Not if you go out and make the roster decisions you think can help you in the postseason later.
You go out and win a World Series, and that changes everything. You only have only one result now that doesn't suggest you wasted a year.
The World Series. I totally agree.
You're now saying that basically we have to win a World Series or we wasted another year of this core. But I think ultimately the core of the guys, the Harpers, the Turners, the Schwarbers, the Real Mutos, that group of guys, they did not want Rob Thomson to be fired.
And again, this roster is too good to not make the playoffs and win 90 games. So, I mean, you could put a robot in the dugout. They're going to make the playoffs. They're too good not to.
Yeah, they are just faltering in the postseason.
They do have a robot in the dugout. I mean, that's what every big league manager. We asked earlier, give me a manager that you like. Like if I said right now, you can handpick whatever manager you want. Which guy would make a difference for this team?
Would it be Bochy, who's available? But he's older, you know? Like that's the guy it seems like the most popular.
I got news for you. The Phillies are not hiring a guy like Bruce Bochy.
I agree with you. I'm just saying, is there anybody out there that's really going to make a difference that they're not just going to hand a piece of paper to every game?
Exactly. But, okay, so that's caveat is a guy like Bruce Bochy would never be hired by the Phillies because they want to be able to say, this is what we want you to do. Yeah, like we were asking earlier, do you like Aaron Boone? Is he a good manager?
I think he's a solid manager, but he's just handed a piece of paper like everyone else.
Yeah.
Right, but the Yankee fans think he's awful.
I know.
Do you like Dave Roberts?
I like Dave Roberts too. I think he's a good manager, but
another robot.
The Dodgers fans think that Dave Roberts is the biggest moron there is.
I agree, and Philly fans think Rob Thompson's the biggest moron ever. It's the same everywhere.
But that's my point. Is there are people though who legitimately think these managers are morons not because they are, because of the decisions that the front office makes for them.
I know. I think most people don't understand that. They are stuck in the old way of baseball, and it's the manager. They get the lineup card. They make all the decisions in game. It's not like that. It is predetermined before the game. They know what they're doing.
Glasnow and Sasaki going to the bullpen for the NLDS. That's a front office decision.
Well, the GM puts the roster
together.
So
that
with
basically,
that in mind.
I mean, that won them the series, I would say.
Yeah, when the GM puts that roster together, he says, I'm going to put this roster together, and these two guys are going to be used as bullpen pieces.
That was crucial. Yep.
Right, and when the Phillies put their roster together, when Nola was on the roster and Thompson had said, well, Nola had never pitched out of the bullpen before. That was your clue right there that the plan was that Nola was going to start a game. So there you go. But, like, we had McGarry on earlier to the point where he talked about it. He said about the Ohtani walk. And he said, if you don't think before the game that the front office sat down with them and said, if that scenario comes up, in other words, what do you do with Ohtani if there's a base open in a late game? And he said, if you don't think that scenario came up, that forget it against anybody, and Ohtani comes to the plate with a base open late in the game, what do? We walk him.
Yeah, and people were, complaining, and they have, an argument to say, well, he was 1 for 17 in the series up until that point, wasn't hitting well at all. But in the past against Duran is when he had trouble. Duran had trouble against Ohtani, and that's why they put him on.
Well, Duran pitched against Ohtani, 5 at-bats. He gave him 2 home runs.
Yep, so that's why they walked him.
Hey, listen, I don't have any problem with Thompson coming back in terms of the job. I think it's more the optics. Therefore, if you make a decision based on optics, that's asinine. But I understand if the Phillies said, listen, our fan base, we need our season ticket holders to be excited.
Right.
The first decision to bring Thompson back doesn't have season ticket holders excited, I can tell you that much.
Well, I think part of this is also when we talk about the roster, right? There's no guarantee that they make the big changes. They could run it back like the Sixers have 100 times, right? They could do that. But they also have the young core coming up, right? The Millers of the world, the Crawfords of the world. I think that's when you're finally going to see the transition into this roster getting younger, right? And seeing the turnover a little bit into the next kind of era of Phillies baseball with those young guys now getting added.
If you get that first little infusion of youth, that might be what the Phillies are banking on. Listen, we can bring Topper back. We're going to have Crawford. We're going to have Painter. We might have Miller at some point during the year.
I think so.
I'm sure we can trade Bohm or Stott or Marsh or Castellanos. Like, somebody's going to be gone from that group, you would imagine.
Absolutely.
And that just little bit, like maybe that's just enough. I don't know. There's not a lot of help in free agency. There's not a big, it's Kyle Tucker, who's left-handed. There is Pete Alonso, who plays
Bregman,
first base. And if Bregman opts out of his deal, he could be an option too. But other than that, there's not a lot of great free agent options in this class.
No, there's not. I mean, look, Bellinger, if he opts out as well, I mean, it's a very weak class.
Another left-handed.
I know. And it's like, do you want to keep going down this road of boom or bust? But the outfield needs a makeover.
Keep in mind, Justin Crawford is also left-handed.
Lefty. Yeah. So, I mean, listen, I think they're going to bank on the younger guys, getting the infusion of youth throughout the season. I think Crawford will probably be your opening day. I would expect them to probably bring back Bader on that mutual option. I could see that happening. It seemed like he liked it here. I don't know.
And how about Max Kepler? Max Kepler wanting to come back.
Yeah, Kepler wants to come back too.
Oh, great.
13 hitter.
But Bader's not going to opt in. You're going to have to give him a 3-year deal, if not more.
Yeah,
he's not going to. The Phillies might take their end of the mutual, but he won't.
Yeah, he probably won't. But I could see them trying to bring Bader back, and you have Crawford in left, Bader in center, and then you try and figure out something with Castellanos in right. You just have to.
Well, I would imagine they're going to try like heck to try to trade Castellanos.
Yeah, I think they'll eat probably 85% of that contract if they need to. Maybe 100% of the contract if they need to. Because Rob Thompson's coming back, and we know how much Nick and Rob get along. So there is that, to say the least. I do want to move along to nugget number 2. Talk a little Eagles with Za'Darius Smith, him retiring today. Now, this is a weird one, okay? Because when he first got here, which was fascinating. When he first got here, during his media gaggle, right, when he first was into the locker room, introduced, he had said, quote, regarding the information about him possibly retiring, he said, no way, I have a lot of football left in me. So he was like pretty set on not retiring. All of a sudden, he retires today. That's pretty crazy. Now the Eagles are left stuck. All right, they have Jay Luxon, Josh Uche, Azeez Ojulari, and Patrick Johnson, with Nolan Smith not eligible to come off IR until week 9. And that core has not been great. Only a combined 1 sack between that group. So it makes you wonder how much more is Jihad Campbell going to be rushing the passer, especially with all of these guys that you kind of just have left on the line there, on the defensive line, and with Jihad Campbell, he has 6 pressures in 23 snaps and a pass rush win rate of 28.6%. So you wonder how much more they're going to bring the linebackers in and how much more they're going to have to blitz, which we know Vic doesn't love doing. But Za'Darius Smith gone. I mean, they got nobody left on that line right now.
No, they don't. And Nolan Smith probably not back until after the bye week, probably leading into the Green Bay game. Jalen Hunt, I think, has been a mild disappointment in terms of at least rushing the passer. You thought you were going to get more there. Za'Darius Smith didn't play the first week and has more sacks than anybody on the team, I think. I think he has a sack and a half. That leads the team right now. Shows you the status of this pass rush, which is I think they have 9 total sacks. I mean, they got sacked 6 times by Denver alone. Denver had 6 sacks in 1 week, and the Eagles have 9 total sacks this year. So that number has been a problem for them. Yeah, this is a big, unfortunate decision by Za'Darius Smith because I don't know where you're going to get those snaps from. I guess Ojulari, who has been getting more snaps. Uche, who, been okay. I know people like his Pro Football Focus numbers, but I don't know that anybody even knows what jersey number he's wearing. You don't ever see him make an impact on the field.
No.
So, listen, their offensive line has been part of this problem on their offense, and their defensive line not being as deep and talented as you're accustomed to is a part of the reason the last 2 weeks why your defense is starting to struggle now.
Yeah, and this kind of just comes out of left field because he was so adamant about he wasn't going to retire, didn't really think about it. And all of a sudden today he's retired. It's over. It's done. That's what's so confusing about this is that he said during one of his early media gaggles in the locker room that he was not going to retire, didn't think about retiring. And then today he retires abruptly heading into this week. Very, very odd. You wonder what happened there. What happened there? Something had to have happened.
That guy needs to get on a podcast and air.
Absolutely. Get him on a player podcast, Pete.
Yeah, and Nick Sirianni said that you got to ask him why his reasonings were. Well, where are we going to find him? I mean, who's getting a hold of Za'Darius Smith?
Player podcast, your favorite, Mike. Like Pete just said, we need to get him on a podcast. We'll open up a little bit, we'll talk to somebody. Those players, they drop some nuggets on those player podcasts, Mike. I know how much you love them.
Yep, I love a player podcast. Let me tell you. Speaking of player, Grayson was on earlier and threw out the name Brandon Graham as a possible. Like if you called him, he thinks that Brandon Graham would jump at the opportunity to come back and play.
Is that enough, though? Is that enough to bring DG back in? Like, is that going to make a massive difference? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, could it like revive the locker room, which seemingly is cracking right now?
That could be the possibility there. Reviving the locker room a little bit and getting those guys back together. Sure. On the field, production-wise, I think Howie needs to make a trade. And listen, there's a lot of teams out there that want edge rushers, need defensive line help, so they might have to pay a pretty penny by the deadline to go out and get somebody.
Like you mentioned at Campbell, like short term, like 5 days from now, do you put him at edge and just see what you got there? I mean, I think you have to.
I mean, do you blitz a little bit more? Does Bond blitz more? Does Jihad Campbell blitz a little bit more? I mean, those guys maybe you could see being more a part of the pass rush because you need them to. You're not getting to the quarterback whatsoever, so you might have to bring in your linebackers at this point.
Well, you got Nakobe Dean back, so maybe he could take some of those snaps at linebacker, and you could try. But I will say this. I don't know that they're ready to move Jihad Campbell into a full-fledged edge rusher because guess what? He hasn't done very well in the limited snaps he's had there anyway, and it doesn't sound like Vic Fangio has been glowing about trying to move him to that spot.
No, but it's like, where do you go from here? That's where it is. Like Za'Darius Smith leaving, it's like, where do you go from here? I think they make a move at the deadline.
Our unsportsmanlike moment of the day today was Michelle Smallman saying that the Tampa Bay Bucs are maybe the best team. The only thing that can slow them down is if they get injuries. Well, the Eagles went on the road to Tampa and beat that team. Just keep that in mind.
Yep. Tampa Bay has the best record in football. The only loss is to the Philadelphia Eagles.
On their home field.
That was one of their better. I mean, the Eagles dominated that game. I know it got close late, but they were up early in that game.
Yep, it was.
It's just a weird thing how quickly 2 weeks' time, how things change that quickly for you.
Yep, massively. Massively. All right, 2 pack of nuggets for you today. Little birds, little fills on this gloomy Monday afternoon, Mike.
All right, gloomy for the people who hate it. Rob Thomson, he has been retained by the Philadelphia Phillies. He will be back in the dugout next year for the Phillies. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. And don't forget, live video streaming on the X platform and on YouTube at Mike Gill Show. Hey, coming up next, John McMullen was at the presser today. We'll get his thoughts on what Nick Sirianni had to say and why Za'Darius Smith abruptly retired and how they replace him. That's coming up next with John McMullen here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. And also, next hour, the Phillies have retained Rob Thomson. We'll update the poll on how many people want Rob Thomson or wanted Rob Thomson back with the Phillies. That's next. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and check out the live video portion of the show.
Eagles football on 97.3 ESPN this Sunday as the Eagles travel to face the Minnesota Vikings.
He's going for Barkley, and it is caught by Barkley down the far sideline, and he is in for the touchdown. Excellent play call. And Jalen Hurts drops a dime right into Barkley's lap.
Pre-game coverage begins at noon. Merrill and Mike call all the action starting at 1 p.m. This is where the Eagles play. 97.3 ESPN.
All right, one more hour to go, but it's a big one. John McMullen from Birds 365. Big news today around the Eagles. Za'Darius Smith is retired. Nick Sirianni asked if he's going to switch the play caller, abruptly said no. Fair question or not, John McMullen's here to break it all down for us on your drive home from work. Johnny Mac is brought to you by Boardwalk Honda. Shop their pre-owned Hondas online. New lineup of new pre-owned and certified pre-owned Hondas online at boardwalkhonda.com. John McMullen, Sports Illustrated, and he's the host of Birds 365 weekday at 8 a.m. on the Jacob Media YouTube channel is here. Johnny Mack, we thought it would be a quiet Monday around the Eagles. You know, they didn't play since Thursday. You kind of away from the building. And then Za'Darius Smith decides, you know what? I don't need this anymore. I'm hanging him up. How surprised was everybody to hear that from Za'Darius Smith?
Yeah, I think everybody was kind of blindsided by that. And, we just, as Za'Darius just got here, good guy, by the way. I'm going to miss him. He was one of the easiest guys to talk to in that locker room, but and a professional through and through. And when he first got here, he said he's got plenty left in the tank. He wasn't thinking about retiring. And all of a sudden, gets to the bye week and says, you know what, I'm done. And it's certainly not good for the Philadelphia Eagles because he was their best edge rusher, no doubt about it. And it was a weak position to begin with, and now it gets even weaker. I am told it's personal in nature, so you never know. 33-year-old guy, it might be his body. You come back, you get beat up, and, he's got young kids. It might be he went home to Florida for the mini bye and said, you know what, I want to hang out with my family. It could be a bunch of things, but I'm told it's personal in nature.
So what does that leave the Eagles with at that position? How many kind of snaps was he, taking right now, and how do they replace him?
Well, right now it's Jalen Hunt, it's Josh Uche, it's Azeez Ojulari, and it's Patrick Johnson. I mean, those are your guys on the 53, so everybody sort of bumps up a spot. And, Josh Uche would be the starter opposite Jalen Hunt. You're waiting for Nolan Smith to get back, which will be a few more weeks at least. And that would be very helpful, to say the least. And now you really have to start looking at November 4th. That's the trade deadline. So, look at some of these teams that are struggling. Miami, most notably, I would keep an eye on because they have a couple guys that they can move if potentially they wanted to go in that direction. But this is a position which has gone from, maybe they need to add something if they can't get Nolan Smith back as quickly as possible to almost needing to add something.
Would you say right now that they're a little disappointed with Jalen Hunt, or is this kind of where they thought he would be? He's obviously seemingly will now be, elevated to, if he wasn't already the top guy, but Smith had the most sacks out of all the edge rushers on the team. But are they happy with what they're getting from Jalen?
No, but I think that was a miscalculation by just about everybody to assume that he was going to be able to take this huge step forward. Now, from a playing time standpoint, he was already number one before, obviously from a production standpoint not, but just from a snap standpoint. When Nolan Smith went down, he turned into number one. And yeah, that's not a good position to be in. I mean, if you looked around this league and said, who's the number one edge rusher on each team, I guarantee he's number 32. It's not a position he belongs in at this stage of his career. Even assuming he was going to be a starter, I thought was skipping steps from the Eagles' standpoint. And I think they're feeling that right now.
John McMullen's with us here. The Eagles lose Za'Darius Smith. He has retired. And obviously, what are your overall thoughts on the way the defense has played in the fourth quarter against Denver and then into the Denver game, into the Giant game, and any big picture ramifications to some of the things you saw carrying over that could linger?
Well, I think they're two different situations. I think if you look at the Denver game, I think it was more of being on the field a lot and wearing down. I think you could make that as a credible explanation as far as some of the issues they had. And overall, I don't think they played that poorly. Against the Giants, they just played poorly. And part of it is just losing Jalen Carter, who's not able to play, and then you lose Quinyon Mitchell in the first quarter, and things kind of fell apart from there. But I don't know if you watched much football over the weekend, Mike, but the injuries all over the league are crazy. I mean, if you look at Tampa Bay, they're winning games with their fifth and sixth receiver out there. A couple weeks ago in London, Minnesota was able to persevere with five of their offensive linemen out. So you can't just point to an injury or two and say, that's the excuse, because you got to persevere in this league. And there are most teams in this league have far more injuries right now than the Eagles do. So I can't use that as a crutch. They just played poorly on defense against the New York Giants, which is not a good football team.
No, they're not, and they've been pushed around by everybody, and that's what I thought was the compelling thing to talk about, John, is they got pushed around by the Saints, and the Eagles' offense and defensive lines got pushed around by the Giants. That's a sign that puts up some red flags, is it not?
Yeah, a little bit. Cam Scatteraboo didn't seem to just out-physical the Philadelphia Eagles, and that's been the reputation. The Eagles out-physical people, and they sort of took it on the chin. Now, we know that this isn't the same team, and there's a lot of attrition from the team that won the Super Bowl back in February. But you don't expect that kind of performance against that kind of team. That's just not what this standard has been about since this era sort of kicked off. And it was kind of shocking to see, to be honest. And we're going to see how they respond this week. They're a better team, and they should win the game, but they were a better team on Thursday night, and they got their you-know-what handed to them.
They absolutely did. What do we know about Quinyon Mitchell and his status for the defense this week?
Yeah, I mean, Nick doesn't even get those questions anymore. We'll know more on Wednesday. Anytime you talk about a hamstring with a cornerback, that's usually going to be a multi-week injury. So unless they misdiagnose it, which I find it very difficult to believe, I think you're going to be without Quinyon Mitchell for at least one more game and potentially longer than that, depending how serious the hamstring strain is.
Without him, what does that secondary now look like? You've got Adoree Jackson, obviously, and Kaylee Ringo. Do you think about moving Cooper DeJean to the outside?
Yeah, we're going to talk to Vic tomorrow. He's going to get all these questions. He's going to get Cooper outside. He's going to get Jahad Campbell as edge rusher, maybe put Nakobe Dean at linebacker to help with that situation. Ultimately, I think he's going to say what he always says, and that's not right now. And you're going to have to do better. Mac McWilliams wasn't dressed on Thursday night. He might be involved as a rookie. You might want to throw him into the deep end of the pool. The NFL has a way of, it's funny, it has a way of pointing things out. And, the Eagles wanted to keep Isaiah Rodgers, and they were unable to keep him. And he's having a great year in Minnesota. So, the NFL has a way of throwing those ironies at you. And you're going to see him this week, and it'd be nice to have him here playing corner, but didn't work out.
Hasn't worked out. That secondary now, all of a sudden, a big change there. Potentially, if Quinyon Mitchell is out, that would be disastrous. You can almost say he's right now the most important guy. What do we know? I know the injury stuff usually doesn't come out, but do we think that Jalen Carter is a longer-term thing, or is this just a one game, just kind of needed to sit this out on that Thursday night?
Yeah, I think Jalen Carter's going to play. I think part of him sitting out was about the MetLife turf, to be honest, and I think he was very close to playing. If it were at Lincoln Financial Field, I think he would have played. So I do expect him to play this week. Mitchell, as I said, unless they misdiagnose the hamstring, which is not a hard thing to diagnose, I don't see him playing.
All right, let's go. Today, the question was asked about changing the offensive play caller, to which Nick seemed a little annoyed by. He shot it down with a quick, terse no. Jeff McClain asked the question. He then put context to it by saying they did make a change during the mini-bye in 2021 when they made the change from Nick to Shane Steichen. Number one, I don't think anybody thought that was going to be a yes answer, right? But should they be considering this, or is that outlandish?
No, I think it's pretty outlandish at this stage. It's very early in the process. You've only played 6 games. They're actually, I think it would shock people to know that they're a better passing offense than they were last season, at least from just a statistical standpoint. The big issue has been a downtick in the running game. They've actually gotten a little bit better from the passing game, and that's helped by Jalen had 283 yards passing against the Giants. So all these sample sizes are so small, they're probably not relevant, but it's not relevant to changing the play caller either because the sample sizes are so small.
We were talking about this earlier. Like, you almost can't. You got to hope that they can't fire or don't want to fire or move on from this guy. You can't keep changing this position every single year. That's not a recipe for success either. They need this guy to work out, right?
Well, yeah. Well, you always want them to work out, but the Eagles are in a position where, and this has happened, and Howie's explained this in the past, that they've reached this level where you're going to end up losing guys no matter what, because either they're going to get hired somewhere else.
Right. Well, and John, real quick on that. That's why I contend this is the wrong decision to begin with. Because of that reason right there. If the guy does a good job and he's a young guy, he's going to get scooped up. You almost needed to find a Vic Fangio, a guy who's done this already and doesn't want to be or isn't a candidate to be a head coach anymore.
Yeah, that's I've heard people use that theory, and that's fine, and it's worked out on the defensive side, but that's a really small sort of pathway to find that guy. In the case of Vic, he's from the area. He doesn't want to go anywhere else at this stage of his career. He wants this to be his last job. Like, to find like a Tom Moore type who's older in his career and wants to stay around, I guess it's possible, but it's unlikely. And that's a really difficult thing to find. So, I think you go by coaches. The issue to me is the negative side, because, again, there hasn't been much difference in this offense from Shane Steichen to Brian Johnson to Kellen Moore to now Kevin Patullo. But what happens is, and that was the second part, what I was saying, Howie says, the expectations are so great. When you don't hit those expectations, then guys lose their jobs. That's where I think the Eagles got to get better at. People don't want to hear that, but that's what they got to get better at, because Jeffrey Lurie can't come looking for a scapegoat every time you don't win a Super Bowl. And that's been the case in the past in reaching these types of expectations, whether it's Brian Johnson, if you want to go back to Mike Groh, whatever, in the previous Doug Peterson regime. You can't just scapegoat people. And maybe that slows down some of this constant churn on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and, we were kind of half joking, but Brian Callahan got fired today. He would be the kind of guy that would be – I know he didn't call plays in Cincinnati, but he did happen to have
I don't think he wanted – don't think you want him.
I'm just saying, he did happen to have two pretty good wide receivers that they incorporated into their offense pretty good over there. Maybe just saying, hey, is there a layer that we can add to this pass game that can help us out here just a little bit? But I know obviously it didn't go well in Tennessee, but that's a talent deficiency thing, right?
Well, I mean, with young quarterbacks, it's just a slog. It really is, unless unless you have patience and unless you think about Drake May in his first year. He looks like the one young quarterback over the past 2-3 years that has really taken. If you go back to C.J. Stroud, but over the past 2 years, I would say Drake May is the one guy who looks like he might turn into something pretty darn good pretty quickly. And, if you look at his first year, he had 9 fumbles. He had, the touchdown to interception ratio was not good. And, they shifted gears. They fired Mayo and hired a good coach in Mike Vrabel, who got Josh McDaniels back, who's a terrible head coach but good offensive coordinator. So you still have that churn. Everybody's too impatient in the NFL. These guys, and look around the league at the best quarterbacks in the league this far. To me, if you talk about MVP, you know who the MVP conversation is besides Josh Allen? It's Baker Mayfield, it's Sam Darnold, and it's Daniel Jones.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bunch of retreads. This league is, turning. It's funny you mentioned this. You got the guy like May, who everybody's excited about right now, and the quarterback. It changes almost week to week. Of like, this guy's having a good week. No, this guy's having a good week. This guy's having a good week. And then like last year, Bo Nix kind of came out of nowhere. He was the kind of guy that, and now this year he's just been okay. You watch that game yesterday. I'm in a text chain that says this guy.
It wasn't good.
No, exactly. I got people
either.
No, exactly. But like last year, he exceeded. Now he's taking a step back. C.J. Stroud is a rookie. He looked like he was going to be great. Now he's taking a step back. That position is so hard to find consistency at. So, it's interesting to see how that position materializes and how much it goes into why the Eagles do what they do. Is you could to find a guy who's Patrick Mahomes is so hard that the coaching staffs so infrequently believe that they have that guy, or sometimes overthink that they do have that guy. The Eagles are saying, we know we don't have that guy, so we're just going to be what we are offensively.
Well, I think that's part of it, but I think it's also I think the Eagles deserve credit for building an offense around the quarterback they have and turning the quarterback into what I think is a top 10 quarterback. Now, might be on the back end of that top 10, but nonetheless, that's pretty good. And they've already been able to win a Super Bowl, go to 2 Super Bowls. So it's worked out beautifully, but you have to have a coaching staff that builds an offense around the quarterback, and that's part of the problem.
Right.
But they're building an offense that people don't want to see, but they don't realize they're building it because of the quarterback they have.
Right. Well, it's like, you feel like you have the quarterback, and then you let the leash go a little bit more, and then he shows you more of his warts, and then you're like, well, I gave him too much. Now I got to scale it back in.
Yeah, that's part of it. They've done that twice, if you think about it. They did it 2021 when Nick had first got here, and they did it last season. And, yeah, that's part of it. That's definitely part of it. And it's interesting because I think most Eagles fans have a love affair with Jalen Hurts, and most don't realize that some of the things they're complaining about are because they have the guy that they have the love affair with. So it's really difficult to explain.
John, you asked a question about Lane Johnson's comments. He mentioned the word predictable, not once, but multiple times throughout that little scrum there. And he chooses when to speak and what to say and how to say it. How did Nick kind of let that resonate with him? And how important do you think it was that Lane Johnson said what he said?
Yeah, I definitely think it's important that Lane said, because he does it purposefully, no doubt about that. So I did find Nick's answer kind of illuminating in the fact that he took it a different way, and that they're becoming predictable because of the lack of effectiveness. And to a certain degree, that's the case. You know, and I think the biggest problem with this team, if you look at last year versus this year, is the running game. It's not the passing game. As I said, the passing game's improved incrementally, but improved a little bit, which is shocking because it's not exactly high octane, but again, it's improved a little bit. The running game, on the other hand, is dropped. You know, the floor has dropped out underneath to the point where, if you think about the Nick Sirianni era, 2021, once they recalibrated, they were a dominant running team. 2020 with Miles Sanders. When they lost Miles Sanders, they were a dominant running team with DeAndre Swift. When they lost DeAndre Swift, they got Saquon Barkley, had the historic season, and now they still have Saquon Barkley, and they're averaging 3.4 yards per carry with Saquon Barkley. They were over 5 yards a carry with Miles Sanders. They were at 4.9 yards a carry with DeAndre Swift. They were well over 5 yards a carry, and at times 6 yards a carry with Saquon Barkley. Now it's 3.4. That's what's going on. So to Nick's point, he's right. You know, if last year, you know, 1st and 10 turned into 2nd and 3. This year it's turning into 2nd and 9 or 2nd and 11. And then, yes, you become predictable because then you have to throw the football, and everybody knows it. So part of it is execution. He is right about that. But I thought it was interesting because I think Lane was being more, we're too predictable. Just take it on its face value rather than that more sort of layered look at it. And to a certain degree, Nick is right that it does boil down to execution.
All right, John McMullen, tomorrow morning we'll have plenty more on Za'Darius Smith and the Eagles defense and what's going on with this team. The coordinators will talk tomorrow as well. Real quick, if they called Brandon Graham, would he be interested?
Well, they're not going to call Brandon. Would he be interested? I don't think so, but I wouldn't think that. Think the Miami Dolphins.
Okay.
More than Brandon Graham.
All right. Well,
the two, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb. So, and they're a team going nowhere. So that's a potential. Problem is, a lot of teams are going to be looking for edge rushers as well.
Big time. Commanders in action tonight. Cowboys, by the way, they lost to the Panthers yesterday. A highly entertaining game if you're into entertaining football. Actually, it was pretty bad football, but entertaining bad football. Is that fair? It was entertaining bad football.
Well, I think the Cowboys and both teams couldn't stop either.
It was some of the worst tackling. It was some of the worst tackling and defense you ever saw yesterday.
Yeah, their defense is awful. Their offense is really good.
Yeah.
And remember, they're going to be getting CeeDee Lamb back, and Dak Prescott has turned George Pickens into a star to get that thrower. So they have a very good offense, but that defense is just
awful.
One of the worst in the NFL.
Well, we'll see the Commanders tonight. This will be interesting. Commanders, Bears. You can listen to that game on 97.3 ESPN because I'm starting to hear the national pundits and everybody else, John, that think the Commanders are going to win this division all of a sudden. You know, no one has won the division back-to-back years.
Well, I picked the Commanders to win the division for that reason. It's been 2
throw,
decades.
By the way. Oh, my gosh. Sorry. We're watching the baseball game, and just an awful throw. Yeah, you did pick the Commanders. But listen, they didn't look good, and then they had some injuries, and the Eagles got off to a 4-0 start. You thought, but here we are. Commanders-Bears tonight should be interesting, and you can listen to that game on 97.3 ESPN. John's back later this week. We'll talk to you then, man.
All right, thanks, Mike.
There's John, and, of course, he's brought to you by Boardwalk Honda. Shop their lineup of new, pre-owned, and certified pre-owned Hondas online, boardwalkhonda.com. Hey, we're live at the Fanatics Sportsbook. We're watching the American League Championship Series. That's just a terrible
He
throw.
thought he was Ozzie Guillen for a second. I mean, come on.
Terrible
Ozzie
throw.
Smith, I'm sorry.
Josh Naylor makes an error. Is this the same guy who pitched yesterday? Oh, no, this is Gilbert. 3-1 Seattle. Who hit the homer for Seattle?
Rodriguez.
And who homered? No. Toronto didn't homer, right?
No.
Somebody doubled. They're back-to-back doubles, right?
Not sure.
I am, so sad that these games are still going on, and I'm so into them, and the Phillies aren't playing. These games have been so awesome.
Because the Phillies were there. I mean, the Phillies had the pitching to go pretty far. Their pitchers dominated.
I think they would have beat the Brewers or the Cubs.
Yeah.
And then you play the Dodgers in a 7-game series. Could be different. Well, if you don't bunt.
Right, if you don't bunt. That was a problem.
All right. When we come back, speaking of the bunt, the guy who called that bunt, Rob Thomson, stay or go, the decision has been made. That's next. This is the Sports Badge. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. Listen, don't forget my Eagles special offer. Free order of spicy tandoori chicken wings for dine-in customers when the Eagles win at the Nizams. They also have a great lunch buffet Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And if you're looking for a place to carry your next corporate event, private party, they have a banquet space that can seat up to 100 people for private events and celebrations. That's the Nizams, my friends over there, Dr. Roy and the team. They do a great job. I love it over there. Check it all out at the Nizams in Egg Harbor Township. All right, I'm Mike Hill. This is the Sports Bash. We're live at the Fanatic Sportsbook. You got the double-header Monday Night Football game tonight. Do you have a favorite game tonight? You got Bears-Commanders, 8:15. That's the later game. And then you got Bills-Falcons. That's the early game.
You know, I like watching Buffalo and their offense.
Yeah?
Yeah, any chance Buffalo's on national TV or TV?
Yeah, I'm going you got Flyers home opener tonight.
Oh, you know what? I'm wearing my Flyers hoodie. I got to go Flyers.
You're going Flyers?
Yeah, you see Michkov, he's getting benched again.
Yep. Out of shape.
Can we just get one day? Man, that's all I'm asking for is just one day.
I know yesterday, Milton Williams, did he end up playing yesterday?
I'm not sure.
I saw that he got put on the injury report, he was with an illness. I said, man, even if you played for the Eagles now, you got gloom and doom.
If you have some connection to Philly sports right now.
ALCS on now. The NLCS is on tonight. Phillies would be playing tonight.
Yeah.
They could have got their head out of there, you know what?
Which, I mean, they got two of these pennant games on the same day.
Yeah, you got two pennant games, two Monday Night Football games,
right?
And the Flyers tonight. Josh, what are you going? He's a Flyer guy, Josh.
Oh, I'm definitely going Flyers to start, but then I'm going right to the football.
So you're going 7 o'clock Flyer. Any baseball at all?
I'll see the highlights later.
Wow.
By the way, Milton Williams played 59% of the snaps yesterday for the Patriots.
All right, so he felt better.
He played. He's fine.
Yeah, Josh Sweat, he has 5 sacks for Arizona.
Yeah, Josh Sweat's actually playing well for the Cardinals.
Yeah.
That John Gannon-Josh Sweat relationship seems pretty good.
He's been doing all right. The Eagles are certainly missing both of those guys right now.
Isaiah Rodgers had those 2 defensive scores the other week.
I was going to say, if you can bring one guy back, would it be Isaiah Rodgers?
100%.
Josh Sweat, Milton Williams.
Dude, it's got to be Rodgers. I mean, the fact that I don't know why. Yeah. Okay, I do know why, all right? But I hate the reason why they didn't bring Isaiah Rodgers back. Because we've heard McMullen talk about this. He just joined you earlier. We've heard Jeff Moshe talk about this. He joined you earlier on Football at 4. They both have said, and other people have said, the Eagles have a policy that they do not re-sign guys to long-term deals who they're not 100% sure they are full-time starters. The Eagles should have just done it anyway because there's no reality where anyone in their right mind was like, yeah, you know, that Dory Jackson's an upgrade over Isaiah Rodgers.
No, he's not. And it's been a problem. They haven't been able to figure it out. And I'll tell you what, if Quinyon Mitchell doesn't play this week against Justin Jefferson, you got a big problem. Big problem. Couple other thoughts. The Za'Darius Smith retiring. He just abruptly retires here. Do the Eagles make a trade? Do they got to go trade route? I would say they do.
Nah, they have to.
Because they brought Za'Darius Smith in here, and they lucked out by getting him.
Right.
There's nobody else to luck into anymore. So if you thought you needed to get Za'Darius Smith because you needed extra for what you had, now you lost that. You now need to replace that. You can't let that just go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, they're 4-2, so they owe it to their record, really, and the players in that locker room to do what they have to do to fill that role again.
They have to, because they already admitted they had a problem when they brought Za'Darius in. That's my point. They admitted they had a problem when they brought him in here in the first place. So now that he says, okay, I'm not playing anymore, now you said, well, we lucked out in getting him. Now we got to do something to replace him. So I think they have to be looking. Now, I don't know.
Now, how much are you willing to pay? If you go a trade route, that's one thing, but what are you paying?
Well, it's part of the problem with the Bradley Chubb conversation, which is if you bring in a guy like Bradley Chubb, you know what's going to happen. what's going to happen, you got to pay his fat contract that he just signed. Are you willing to trade whatever assets it takes to get a guy that you're going to have, if I'm reading Spot Track correctly, not just a $12 million cap this year, $31 million cap hit next year? Are you willing to give up the assets for a guy who's going to be 30 years old with that kind of cap hit?
No, he's not on the level of the guys that we talked about in the offseason, and those are guys I would have considered. Hendrickson, Watt, his name was out there, although I wasn't really, you know what I'm saying? He wasn't on the level of
Miles
any of those.
Garrett.
Like Parsons.
Garrett,
Parsons.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, they did make a call for
Parsons. Yeah.
Hendrickson's interesting, though, guys, because you're at this point almost halfway through the year. He'll cost you, at least financially, less than Bradley Chubb would, and he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year.
All I know is this. They need a pass rusher, and now they have to go down the route of trying to figure out a way creatively to get one, because they told us they needed a pass rusher when they went and got Za'Darius, and now he helped you out for a couple of weeks, and now he's gone. So you definitely have a problem at that position. That's not a debate.
What are you willing to give up, though, for, as Pete said?
For like a Chubb?
For any of these guys. Like what is the number that you're saying, all right, I'm comfortable giving up this much?
It's got to be like some conditional pick, right?
Well, if that's all you're giving up, you're not getting much.
Like you're going to the guys that we're talking about. It's not conditional anything.
Right.
It's top of the line. I don't know. I mean, if you're Trey Hendrickson now, he left the game this week, right?
Yeah, but they expect him to be all right.
Look, remember, he missed training camp. I hate those guys.
And Trey is a free agent next year, right? So there's no obligation to him next year.
Yeah, the only guy who's on the rumor mill that is under contract next year is Bradley Chubb. The other three guys are, we mentioned Hendrickson of the Bengals, Cam Jordan, who's going to be a free agent at the end of the year with the Saints, and then you have the Browns D lineman Alex Wright is going to be a free agent. So those are like the three of the four big names who are going to be free agents.
By the way, the Bengals must be playing on a Thursday night this week.
Steelers, I think.
Are they the Thursday night game? Because the Bengals injury report is out for this week, and Trey Hendrickson is a DNP.
Ooh. Yeah, Steelers at Bengals.
So
how about Joe Flacco? That guy, man, what an ageless wonder he is.
Did you guys see anybody watch the Saquon documentary on Amazon Prime?
I have not.
Nope.
I watched that on Friday or Saturday night.
The whole thing. I mean,
yeah.
How many episodes?
It's just one.
Oh, it's just one.
It's like an hour and a half movie.
I was gonna say it's like a 90-minute thing.
Right. It goes back years, right? I mean,
so he basically filmed him, had a film crew follow him around for like all the way back, like into like 5 or 6 years, and it goes like from his draft night to his rookie season, and then him getting injured, coming back, the whole
trade request, right? Requested
the trade request, but you actually see and hear him on the phone with Joe Shane and Mara. He's literally playing John Madden football while he's on the phone with Joe Shane and saying, well, why can't I get traded? I don't understand. Like, he's on the phone with the GM playing John Madden football. And then he gets off the call, and he's like, yeah, I was just there dotting passes like while I'm on the phone with my boss. And then he's talking to Mara, and he's like, well, I don't understand. Like, why can't you just trade me? And Mara's like, we can't do that. You're too important. So you listen to all these phone calls of him. Like, he literally was saying, like, I feel trapped. Like, this is awful. He's like, I feel trapped. I want to go. I want to move on, but they won't let me. So you got a pretty interesting insight on these guys who get the franchise tag.
Right.
They don't want that franchise tag because they feel like they can't move on.
By the way, Hendrickson's injury, Mike, so he's got what they're calling, at least according to the report I'm reading, he is dealing with a back soreness.
Yeah.
MRI came back clean.
And I don't like to hear that just only because he missed all of training camp. And those guys, look at McLaurin's out, right?
McLaurin's been out, yep.
He's been out.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't usually go well with these guys that miss training camp. Get your ass in camp. Come on, man. That's what I would say to you. Get to camp. McLaurin hurt. All right. Each day this week we'll have a stay or go candidate for the Phillies. Today is Rob Thomson. Stay or go. So far, the voting has been pretty steady throughout the day. It is 57% for Rob Thomson. Stay. 42% go. I'm a little surprised by that. I thought it would be either more on the go side or maybe more 50-50. But it's almost 60-40 that Phillies fans are saying, I'm okay with him staying. You guys surprised by that?
I mean, a little bit, but again, I think the finger pointing should be at the offense, right?
Well, anybody with half a brain would know that, yes, the offense didn't do its job.
To put it lightly, yes.
But I know there are people out there that want to blame the manager, and those people exist, and I totally understand those people. They think the manager has a very big hand in these games, and I can't argue with them on that. Believe what you want to believe. I'm not here to try to change your mind on it. If you think Rob Thomson was a problem, voice that.
I think there's a lot of people out there who have kind of resigned themselves to the reality that they can blame the manager all they want, but the reality is that he's not fixing the hitting or hurting the hitting.
He's not. And like, listen, just because we have a difference of opinion doesn't mean that, like, my opinion's the right one. Maybe people are giving me bad information. I don't know. You know, we're just going off of stuff that we've been told by people who cover the teams. A guy who was, you know, a team president for a Major League Baseball team. We hear a guy like A-Rod, Derek Jeter, and others who were pretty good players, I think, right? Jeter and A-Rod, they're pretty respected players in the game. And they're all voicing their opinions about what's going on in baseball. Now, this is recent. Like, this is in the last, 7 to 10 years, I would say. Like, from what I understand. By the way, all you have to do is watch the movie Moneyball. This was going on 20 years ago at that level, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, it was much more, resentful from the manager back then.
But my point is, that's when, that was the first year. So the manager was being resentful because this was all new to him.
Right.
No, you're not going to tell me what to do. You think in the 25 years since that movie's been made that things have not gotten a little bit more like, hey, dude, I'm not asking you. I'm telling you.
Well, again, it goes back to why the Phillies fired Girardi, because he wasn't following the script. He was going rogue, basically. These teams don't want managers who are going to go out there and do whatever they want.
The only thing you can say, negative about Thomson is his teams continue to have these early exits in the playoffs, which is unacceptable for the payroll.
But again,
and
it
the
goes
stars
back
that you
to
have.
The question that Mike asked a couple hours ago. Name me a manager who's going to come in and do a better job. Nuggets brought up Bruce Bochy, who's probably never going to come here. We've heard one person texted A.J. Hinz, and the other person texted Kevin Cash.
You're right. Someone said Alex Cora because of the relationship with Dombrowski.
Right. So, but are any of those guys going to drastically impact this team?
I don't think so.
To be better.
Yeah. Hey, listen, again, I don't know that we're right or wrong. I have no idea. Nobody knows. We're not in those discussions. We're just going off of what is being reported and told to us by many people who cover the league. There are people who cover the league and would say, no, it's not that heavy. Mike McGarry was on earlier and was adamant about the fact that the Phillies organization is heavily involved with a lot of the decisions. Maybe he has different information than other people have. I don't know. We're never going to know the answer. If you in your heart of hearts believe that Rob Thomson is solely making these decisions on his own, then yeah, I understand why you want him fired. I can't argue with that. If you think he is 100% making all of these decisions with full autonomy, you have every right to say he should be fired. If you do not believe that he's making all of these decisions on his own, then it is hard to justify firing the guy when he is basically doing what he is told. And that's why I think the move today to bring him back screams that the organization wants a guy that will carry out the plan from the front office. And Rob Thomson has done that to 96 wins. And he's back. We'll close out the show coming up next. All right, getting out of here. We want to thank everybody again at the Fanatic Sportsbook here at Ocean Casino Resort. We'll be back on Monday. Don't forget, this Thursday we are live at Chickies and Pete. Stop out and see us over there. By the way, James Franklin fired by Penn State yesterday. Trent Dilfer got fired as well by UAB, but James Franklin fired. He will get a buyout of about $50 million.
What were the stats you were reading off? He was making like
25 cents a second.
Yeah.
Not bad. For the next 4
quarter.
years, by the way.
There's another quarter. Josh, how much time's left? 20 seconds? Oh, there you go.
James Franklin fired. They lost to Northwestern. They were 20-point favorites 2 weeks in a row, and they lost outright. And the Penn State athletic department had enough. I had enough of this show today. I'm out of here. Talk to you tomorrow.